All right. Good morning, everybody. Again, my name is Brian Everard. I'm a director here of sales at TAPCO. I've been with TAPCO for about 18 years now. Thank you so much for joining our virtual training session here this morning. Just a couple quick notes here before we mention into the agenda that if you have any questions at all during today's training sessions, please make a note over in the chat field in the right-hand side. We'll make sure to address those questions as soon as we can. And we do have a few short breaks between different sessions, so we'll give you a few different areas if you want to take part in all of the sessions for a break to get away for a few minutes. Again, thanks so much for joining us this morning. We know that it's unique times. TAPCO kind of envisioned going across the state and doing lunch and learns in person across the different districts here in Wisconsin. And due to COVID, it's been difficult for us to do so. So we are taking some of these virtually. So we appreciate that. We hope next year we can actually make our rounds and do some more in-person sessions again. We definitely wanted to make sure we focused on the customer experience here in 2020. We wanted to make sure to get in front of you, wanted to make sure to find out your needs. We wanted to make sure we had a lot of touch points. We wanted to make sure we continued to provide you with industry information and new products and solutions that exist in our industry. So we're definitely making a concerted effort to do more of that this year. We still have an amazing team at TAPCO. Cheryl Sislevich, who's on the line, is our regional sales manager. Aaron Gilbo, Brian Charles, Rick Klein, Laurel Stringfellow, Jeremy Blandon are all still a part of the team here. Again, who a few of you know did retire with TAPCO this year. Scott Bluff, who's been with TAPCO for over 40 years, is retired here. We appreciate both of their efforts. Retirement. We did bring on a couple of new people to kind of help out in those areas. Kevin is an account manager that's going to be making his rounds once we are up for traveling again, as well as Scott Carlson has joined our team. Scott has a number of years of industry experience and will be focused on the signal and ITS side of our business to kind of go around and educate you on what's new and make sure that everything that you're utilizing in TAPCO is working properly. We have a fantastic agenda for today. We have amazing vendors that are speaking today, from Iteris to Polera to Alpha Technologies. So that goes very well, letting you and keeping you educated on some of the newer technologies that are out there here in 2020. Sessions that'll be focused a little bit more on some extra products. One, talking a little bit more digital type of solutions, from dynamic displays to blank out displays to speed radar displays. And then finally, some of TAPCO's manufactured products that we call our intelligent warning solutions that many of you would probably know us for, from our pedestrian warning solutions to our school zones, stop control, wrong way, curve, high water. And then we're going to talk about a few other products that we've brought on here this year that we've had a lot of great success with, especially from a work zone standpoint. So sit back. Again, any questions that you have, please note it here on the right-hand side and enjoy today's presentation. Carly, it's all up to you.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending the training today. And Brian, thank you for the introduction. As mentioned, I am Carly Randazzo. I am the Central District Sales Manager with Iteris. Today, we're just going to go over some traffic solutions training, just really a basic overview of just the different solutions that Iteris offers. And during this presentation, feel free to pop any questions or anything that you have in the chat section, and I'll try to get those answered for you as well. So Iteris offers a variety of detection solutions really to fit any signalized application. Just in this picture here, you can see a couple different examples of our detection solutions. In the top left-hand corner up there, you can see our RZ4 wide dynamic range camera. And then we also on the top, we have our radius sensor, which is newer to the Vantage family, which is our stop bar radar detection, but it also has that video streaming in there as well. On the bottom left-hand side, you'll see our vector, which is our advanced detection, as well as stop bar detection, all in one sensor. And then lastly, we have our smart span. So that's detection really designed for any span wire applications. So over the years, video detection has really revolutionized to keep up with growing cities and the demand for safer intersections. Here at Iteris, we've invested millions of dollars in engineering over the past 20 years to ensure that our algorithms are providing the highest accuracy of detection at over 180,000 intersections worldwide. So over the 20 years of development has really allowed us to become experts in the field. In the existing field of view, we can now count bicycles, vehicles, and pedestrians all at the same time. And this is all included at no charge within our detection systems. So just in this little clip here, you can see in the bottom corners that we are counting the pedestrians walking as well as paying attention to the direction that they're walking in. You can see that we detected the vehicle as well as the bicycle in this screen. So detection performance is extremely critical at all intersections, and our cameras are really built to sustain all weather conditions and lighting. Here on this slide, you can see a couple different examples. In the top left image, you can show that a car is being detected in the dark. I know in the past there were some issues with headlights causing left lanes to trigger. In this case, you can see that it's not an issue. In the next one, you can see the screen is extremely dirty, but as long as our cameras are able to see it, we can still detect it. This really shows that our cameras are low maintenance. We say that maybe once a year to get up there and clean them, or every 6 months if possible. In the bottom left image, you can see that there's snow. The snow is not washing out the image with our video detection. And then lastly, in the last image on the bottom, there's a thick fog. So the vehicles are still detectable, and it does not send the camera into recall. Again, as long as we're able to really see the vehicle, we're able to go ahead and detect it. So Iteris has been the front runner in technology. Just some things that we were first at was our WDR imagers. As you can see here in the two images, it really does make a difference, especially with the lighting, as well as deploy differentiation algorithms. We do utilize advanced lens coatings. That way, less maintenance on your cameras. We provide motion compensation algorithms as well as that bicycle differentiation. So our state-of-the-art video detection and software really identifies and analyzes your intersections. So here you can see we can identify and analyze individual traffic lanes, cars, trucks, bicycles, as well as pedestrians, and we're able to take in all this data. This is done through multiple systematic methods to identify these objects. So we have the background differentiation to help us identify the objects, different feature detection features, as well as the motion tracking. So we are the industry's best detection. Iteris offers clear images, as you can see here, and our detection works in all conditions that you saw in the previous slide at all of our intersections. As mentioned before, we've been learning for over 20 years and we're continuing to learn. We've had over 180,000 intersections and still growing. Our cameras are extremely easy to install and they work well once they're installed. Overall, our goal is to have long life cycles as well as low maintenance for all of our cameras. So we've spent many years perfecting our vehicle detection algorithms, and now we're able to be adding bicycles and pedestrian differentiation to the conversation as well, making us, again, once again, the technology front runner in this space. So just looking at these clips, looks like this one doesn't want to play. You can see that we're able to detect the pedestrians walking. We're able to count them. We have the different vehicles that we're detecting here. And then there's different options of the way you'd like the vehicles to be detected in the screens, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But on this video, you can see we have the count of pedestrians as well as their average speed as well. So Iteris, again, has deployed over 180 sensors, 80,000 sensors worldwide. And here is just a couple different sensors that are offered at Iteris. We have our Vantage Radius, which is our stop bar detection with the video streaming built into it. We have our Vantage Vector, which is advanced and stop bar detection. The advanced is radar detection, and then the stop bar detection is done by video. We have our wide dynamic range cameras, Smart Span, our next cameras, as well as a Smart Cycle and PedTrax built into each one of our cameras. So some of our key competencies are the Vantage. So we have that accurate video detection done with that one. The Vantage line is, again, the Vantage Vector and the Vantage Radius, as well as the Vantage Next that I just showed you in the previous slide. We have our Smart Span, which is moving detection zones for span wire application. We have Smart Cycle, which is our algorithm to differentiate the bicycles. Then, as mentioned before, we have our Vector, which is part of that Vantage family, which is really an all-in-one sensor that does it all. It has that hybrid radar and video detection. Again, we have that Radius, the stop bar detection with streaming video, as well as PedTrax built into our cameras, which is the pedestrian detection and measurement. So we can use all these competencies to provide agencies with the data that they need and really want. Again, if anyone has any questions or anything throughout the presentation, feel free to throw those into the chat. But moving forward, one thing we really learned is agencies are wanting more and more data on pedestrians, bikes, and vehicles. So when you have great detection, this will then lead to having great data. With this data, it allows agencies to make more decisions on where and when to make those improvements. And this data can really help replace any short-term or manual data sources to help secure funding for any city projects. So how does Iteris help agencies collect data? We use our detection sensors to collect vehicle, bicycle, and pedestrian data every day, all day. There's really no need for manual counters or standalone video counters. You can get your ROI with any Iteris sensors. We can really help agencies figure out where the majority of their vulnerable road users are, and then ensure that this is where they should be putting their energy into safety improvements in their cities. So we're going to take a look at some of the data we can provide you. First, we're going to review how you can collect bicycle data for your agency and why it's important. So most bicyclist fatalities occur at intersections, which brings the need for cities to reduce intersection conflicts by optimizing traffic signals. You can now use enhanced detection to extend green phases for slow-moving bicyclists. So this can be done with our Iteris Smart Cycle. Smart Cycle is built into all of our latest sensors, but we've been developing it since 2010. As you can see here, we've had a couple different generations of Smart Cycle, and our latest Smart Cycle helped us improve count accuracy and differentiation, and we created a new tracking algorithm in 2018. So bicycle differentiation at intersections really allows signal systems to operate differently once the system detects a bike to allow special timing when necessary for the bike to have enough time to cross the intersection. This not only makes the intersection safer for everyone, but it also will help improve the efficiency of the intersection. So here you can notice there is a motorcycle coming in the video. You can see that it didn't pick up the motorcycle as a bicycle. So even smaller vehicles such as a motorcycle will still be different than a bicycle. So we are able to really notice that differentiation with our tracking algorithms. The motorcycle was just picked up as an average vehicle. So recently we came out with our Smart Cycle Bike Indicator. This is really to support our Smart Cycle within our platform and enhance bicycle safety and improve signal timing. So here you can see an image of it. It can go right on the side of the road, right on any of the poles over there. We're still we can really work on any sizes, anything like that to really fit your intersections if this is something that you're interested in. So the Smart Cycle Bike Indicator really improves the safety by allowing the bicyclist to have enough time to cross the traffic. And they do not have to dismount to push the ped button. One thing we see more and more in cities is bicyclists want to know that they're detected. They want to be able to get across those intersections safely. So most of the time they go off and hit the ped button and wait for the light to change and cross then, which really causes the signal timing to be altered. So when using the Smart Cycle Indicator, it improves signal timing because bicyclists do not feel like they need to dismount and push the ped button to ensure that they're detected. This is removed because they are given confirmation through that indicator that they've been detected. And this then allows us to use that unused ped time to be reallocated. So here's a video of what most bicyclists are trained to do at the intersection. You can see that he crosses across the lanes to dismount and then hits the ped button to wait to cross the street. So we're going to go ahead and review 3 different situations that we currently see happening every day on our streets that really present safety issues and compromise efficiency for our traffic systems. So situation 1, you'll see the bicyclist pull up to the intersection waiting for the traffic light to turn green. They're unaware if they've been detected, and the cyclist attempts to cross the vehicle right lane to push the pedestrian button. This causes imminent danger and a safety issue for any incoming cars in the right lane can then hit the bicyclist. For situation 2, you can see the cyclist stops at the intersection waiting for the traffic light to turn green along with other cars. If the cyclist is undetected, green light signal time. This then causes another danger and safety issue. So the opposite green light might come on while the cyclist is still crossing the intersection, potentially causing a collision with the bicyclist. Situation 3, the cyclist stops at the intersection waiting for the traffic light to turn green. Unaware if they have been detected, the cyclist is able to safely cross the right lane and push the pedestrian button. This is an inefficiency issue as the green light timing is no longer than needed, creating potential signal performance issues and traffic congestion since they went ahead and hit that ped button. So the Smart Cycle Bike Indicator really can help solve all 3 of these issues that we just went over. Here's an example of how the indicator can allow the bicyclist to cross the intersection safely. As you can see, the cyclist pulls up to the intersection waiting for the traffic light to turn green. With the multimodal sensors, it detects their presence, and confirms it to the cyclist through the bike indicator. This is visible to them from their bike lane. The cyclist can then safely cross the intersection and signal performance system is preserved. So our video detection provides accurate bicycle detection, but this is only really a small portion of the solution. Engineers need to start adding extension timing for bikes and to let bikes know that they are being detected. This is really where the bicycle indicator comes in to let them know that they have been detected. So this is what you want to happen at the intersection. As you can see, the bicyclist pulls up, and once detected, the indicator lights up for the bicycle to see that they've been detected. Bicyclists want this product because they want confirmation they've been detected to feel safer crossing the street, just like pedestrians want to see the sign that it is okay to cross. Traffic engineers want this because no more ped buttons will be pushed when no one is present to make the intersection more efficient. Awesome. So moving on, we'll go over just the pedestrians and how we measure their pedestrian activity. So along with the Smart Cycle, we have ped tracks built into our cameras and sensors to measure the pedestrian activity automatically at crosswalks for both directions. So we can measure their volume, their average speed, and their minimum and maximum speed. The ped tracks will display their count, average, and speed data, and we'll store this data as well. So you can see in both the bottom corners, you can see that the direction that they're walking in is being detected, as well as the pedestrians are being counted and their average speed. So what are the benefits of ped tracks? With ped count data, you can now determine what's normal and what's not. These volumes can help alter signal timings to help improve vehicle efficiency. You can enhance intersection safety for vulnerable road users. So if you know where your vulnerable road users are, then you can focus your energy and money and time on improvements for safety. You'll have the ability to provide new data sets to help secure funding. So again, that more data that you have, this will help guarantee more funding and help support any grant applications. You can get that speed data, and this can be used for fine-tuning signal timings. So you can possibly go to slower crosswalks. For example, if you're near an assisted living home, they may need more time to be crossing those intersections. So you can really utilize that data to help know and help fine-tune that timing at your signals. So why is ped tracks important for signal shop techs, traffic engineers, and consultants? It helps improve intersection efficiency by adjusting the ped timing. You can do it by time of day because the pedestrian peaks may differ from traffic peaks. You'll have that on-screen data and bin data, and this will be a means to get more money for maintenance and capital budgets. So why is ped tracks important for MPO planners, bike and ped coordinators? This will help address safety improvements for vulnerable bikes and peds. We'll prioritize investments based on the intersections that have the most peds and bikes. It'll help you collect more and better data to help obtain more federal and state funding as well. So efficient pedestrian clearance time. The designated output channel is programmed to turn on when pedestrians are detected in the crosswalk, and then turn off when pedestrians are no longer in the crosswalk. One thing here to really note, though, is our ped tracks does not replace the ped button. However, it can really help supplement it. It gives you the knowledge to know when pedestrians are crossing the intersection, and will give you that average speed time as well as the volume, and can really give you when the volume's higher and help you change the ped count, the ped timing based on the time of day and their peak hours. This type of data allows for agencies to change their ped clearance time in their TOD plans. So here again, here's an example of our pedestrian detection and counting. You can see that there's just a couple different options to change within our system of how you would like it visually to be seen and count those pedestrians. So overall, PedTrax really expands the use of our detection systems at no additional cost. This data really is available to you 24/7, 365. You can have any included outputs for safety applications, and it's really no additional cost since it's built into all of our sensors. Just wanted to check in. Does anyone, it looks like we have a couple questions. Sorry, I missed them before. It looks like Rick got it. Feel free to send in any other questions through the chat if you have any. So having Smart Cycle and PedTrax algorithms built into our Vantage sensors really allows for a full winning combination. Here you can see we have our Vantage systems, our Smart Cycle, and PedTrax all in one. So we're going to do just a quick overview of our Next platform. All of our cameras can work on our Next platform besides our Radius. The Radius runs on a very similar platform, and it's the Next. The Next platform is an all-in-one integrated hub, which you can mix and match sensors with. Within the Next platform, you will also get automatic traffic counts, remote upgrades, as well as field of view setup. You can also receive high stream video, as well as we have some form factor options there for you. You can do rack or shelf mount. We have on-screen phase display. It works with our Next Viewer app, so you can go ahead and remotely view that intersection from your mobile devices as well as on your computer. Again, this includes that PedTrax that we just went over, as well as a Smart Cycle built into the CCU. With our Next system, you can have the easy-to-use Windows-based software setup tool you can use with a laptop, PC, or mouse and monitor in the cabinet. This really provides robust remote functionality for setup and configuration of the device. So in the tool, you'll have streaming video for each channel. Here you can see just a little snippet that we took from our setup tool. And again, if you wanted to view the video as well, we have that Next Video Viewer app that you can pull up on your phone. So there's several different animated detection options. Start. In the middle image, you can see that the boxes appear blue once the vehicle is crossing through those zones. Over here in the bottom left, you can see that the zones show in red, but once the vehicle is going through the zones, they'll turn blue. And then you can see in the other bottom right-hand side that once the vehicle is going through the zones, it will turn blue and move within the vehicle as they're traveling through the lane. So again, you can also remotely view your intersections with our Next Viewer app. You can do this wherever and whenever. You can find this in the App Store on your phones. It's available on both iPhones and Android devices. You'll have live streaming anytime. So lastly, I know I mentioned data a lot throughout this presentation earlier, and Iteris really has a couple different options for you to really make your data come alive. One of the software things we offer is our Vantage Live. This software brings the data from your controller into visuals and can help you have easy reports that can be exported onto your computer. With Vantage Live, you can have all your counts in one place. You no longer need to manually count or pull from your controller. It is all in the Vantage Live that can be pulled up on your desktop from the cloud. So here you can see a quick visual of the dashboard. On the dashboard, you can see the top 5 intersections by volume, approaches by volume, and movement by volume. You can also find the bicycle and pedestrian volume as well. So you can pull all reports for all modes of transportation. You can do your cars, bikes, as well as pedestrians. Other reports that you could get within our Vantage Live system is our detailed turning movement counts. You can get those peak hour reports and peak hour factor calculations as well. So lastly, it can report on your annual average daily traffic. And this can really help replace any manual road tube counts. And again, you'll get this 24/7, 365 at permanent count stations. Awesome. So that is basically all I had today. I'll check into this chat to see if we have any questions. Let's see. It looks like Joseph Blakeman asked a question. And Rick just answered it. He asked, can pedestrians and bikes crossing against a red signal or not using push buttons be counted automatically? And yes, the answer is yes. Awesome. Does anyone else have any other questions? One thing, my email is posted up here. I'll send out an email to everyone else as well. I'm happy to, since this was really just a quick basic overview of all of our products and services, I'm more than happy to schedule another meeting to go take a deeper dive with anyone that's interested. Feel free to shoot over any questions that you may have. But again, if you have any other questions, you can throw them in the chat right now.
We'll pause for a moment here and let folks ask some questions if they'd like to. If not, we'll get started here shortly with Mike Olson and discuss some battery backup here from Alpha.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you.
A lot of great products there from Iteris, great presentation, and we will jump right in with Mike Olson here with Alpha. Hannah will get that presentation up. There we go, and we'll plug away here with Alpha. Mike, take it away.
Thanks for your time this morning. Appreciate you scheduling this in. We're going to go through a lot of information in short time here on UPS, and let me know if you've got any questions as you go through. There we go. All right, so just a quick overview on Alpha. We've been around a long time manufacturing outdoor hardened power systems. That's what we started in the broadband cable market over 40 years ago. Been doing traffic market for about 20 years now. Installed and approved in just about every state. We've got well over 50,000 traffic and ITS installations across North America. And we go back to probably 2001 as far as traffic goes. So we are the market leader in UPS backup for traffic and ITS. So why is UPS needed? Well, it's all about safety, right? We want to keep our intersections safe from going dark, keep conflict monitors from tripping due to power disturbances, avoid the need to have police to go out and direct traffic or putting out stop signs and putting signals to flash so when they come back on, it's ready to go and things like that. So, but also to, prevent equipment power problems, right? We want to add life to your signal equipment. UPS will provide things like added surge protection, EMI RFI filtering, automatic voltage regulation, and provides consistent power for your equipment. Here's some data. As I go across the country, or when we used to travel, I talk to customers and see, what kind of outages do you have? And I'd always be looking for studies. This is one of the studies that I ran across, and it seems to be true for most of the country. Your particular situation may be slightly different depending on where you are and your power company and storms and so on and so forth. But Houston, Texas came out with this in their CenterPoint Energy annual report. Excuse me, allergy season here. They found that the average outage lasts for about 2 hours. Typical max, I mean, obviously can go longer than that. An average location would see 2 to 3 outages a year. They also saw average location sees about 70 sags per year, and 23 of those sags would drop to around 84 volts, which is below the operating range of any of your traffic signal equipment. Right. You'd also have swells and overvoltages. Those also occur, and you won't notice those as much, but they will damage your equipment if they go over the operating voltage that it's rated for. If we take a look at Wisconsin, there's another source that I looked at was the Eaton Blackout Tracker, and you can find this on the internet. Just search for that. They did about 10 years worth of data collection. They were capturing data from power companies that would report, Department of Energy, newspapers, magazines, any news source they can that they can find about power outages, because they really wanted to see what's going on out there. There isn't a great source for this data, so it just kind of mishmash as you go through. So these are the ones that were captured. So as we look at Wisconsin, we can see that you had greater than 83 outages in 2017. Unfortunately, Eaton stopped doing that after that, so I don't have any current data. But during that time span, since 2009, they saw an average duration of 148 minutes in Wisconsin for your outages. Number of people affected in 2017 was 458,218. So, and you rank 13th in the nation. So as far as number of outages, with number 1 being the highest. So pretty high. You have a fair amount of outages there, actually. And we can see the trend is definitely going up, but not at a huge rate. But more and more people are being affected by outages. So as we think about the power, we need to think about the equipment that we're powering, right? So your traffic signal equipment, your ITS equipment, well, they have different operating specs. TS1, when it came out, said 95 to 135 volts. Equipment must operate 60 hertz plus or minus 3. And then TS2 said, well, let's go a little wider. So that went down to 89 to 135. And 170, 2070 is 90 to 135. So they all share 135 on the high end. And they're about the same on the low end. But that's where the voltage needs to be powered from the utility or power out of the UPS. Has to be within that range to make sure your equipment is working properly. There's different types of UPS, BBS on the market today, and I'm going to go over the different topologies of some of those so you can see what they look like, how they operate, why you might choose one over another. There's double conversion. There's standby. Not many standby systems out there. The early units, most of them all were standby, and some double conversion out there. But now it's pretty much all line interactive. I'd say greater than 90% of the systems being purchased by agencies today fall into that category. So here's how they work. We've got the transfer switch in the upper left. So what that does is that controls whether the intersection is seeing utility or output from the UPS. Okay. Then we've got the UPS in the middle. Then you've got within that UPS, you've got SPD. That means surge protection device. So transit protection built into the UPS. They all have that. Then you've also got the converter stage and the inverter, and then off to the right to the battery. So let's talk about how this works. And of course, your load, the controller cabinet or ITS in the lower left. So in a double conversion system, the power is always going through the system, and the UPS is always converting it. So utility power goes in, goes through the surge protector, goes into the first stage of conversion, and at that point, it takes AC, converts it to DC. All right, and then maintains its small charge on the batteries, going off to the right there. But then the inverter then takes that DC, converts it back to AC. That's what an inverter does. Takes battery power, DC power, converts it to AC. You may have some of these on your agency vehicles. So when you're out there working on something and you don't have power, you can power up your tools, right? So that's what an inverter does. So double conversion, double because it has two stages of conversion, AC to DC, DC to AC. So there's good and there's bad about this design. A good thing is that if you had anything coming in on your AC line, the process of double conversion takes care of it and cleans it up. Okay. The downside of that is that it generates a lot of heat in the process. This process double conversion, the unit is hot, stays hot, runs hot all the time. Fans are going all the time, which can then shorten the life on the system. So double conversion in itself isn't bad, just not necessarily does well in the outdoor environment where you've got uncontrolled temperatures and things like that. So you have those kind of issues. Then also too, the reality is the power supplies in your signal equipment aren't as sensitive to some of these things as you may have here. So really, it's great, but yet it's got some drawbacks too. So that being the inverter is always on, generating a ton of heat. Now, if you do lose utility, how this works then is that it draws power from the batteries to power the inverter to power your intersection. Okay. Next one is a standby system. So older design, still some of these out there. And we can see the difference as we look at the transfer switch with the AC power flow. You can see the utility goes right to the signal cabinet. And then it also goes to the UPS. And the reason it goes there is because it's going to maintain the charge on the batteries. Okay. Inverter is off essentially. Other than it's charging the batteries, it's actually being powered backwards through the inverter, which turns it into a charger. So a very low amount of current is going through it to charge the batteries. All right. But then, like the double conversion, if you lose utility, it's now going to draw power from the batteries to power the inverter to power the intersection. Standby systems have transfer points that you as a user then get to adjust, and they're typically set at 100 and 130. And so you decide where you want it to switch. But remember, it was 135 on the high end for your equipment, right? And low end is either 89, 90, or 95, depending on which spec you're currently following. So typically we would set them for 100 or 130. Anything in between, lines just going right to the equipment. Anything outside of that, 100, 130, now you're drawing power from the batteries. Okay. Well, there's a lot of issues with standby systems. Is that a lot of times people would find that number one, you're not gaining any added conditioning by the UPS because it's just bypassing it, right? So you're not gaining the added surge protection, EMI, RFI filtering, any of those things you're totally missing out on. Also, if you're at the end of a long line of a utility line, you may find that your voltage is hanging around that 100 volt point, and we saw that a lot in the field. You know, people would see 103, 105 volts, and then very often the voltage would drop down, UPS would kick on, drop power from the batteries, and it would go back and forth, and the batteries would then eventually become starved. So not a good situation. So that's why we moved to line interactive or automatic voltage regulation, AVR. So it's the next step up. So in this case, utility comes in through the transfer switch, goes into the UPS through the surge protection, EMI, RFI filtering, they all have that, right? And then, so it's gaining that conditioning all the time. And then it's also then going through the transformer to the inverter to charge the batteries. At that point, the inverter is acting again like a charger, so very low current, essentially off, all right? And then power in the intersection. So this is like an online type system. Now, if the voltage goes a little high or a little low, instead of going to backup like a standby system would, right? What it does now, it uses the transformer then to regulate that voltage. Okay, so it can raise it or lower it in a large range actually of this regulation, and the inverter is still just used backwards charging those batteries. Okay. But if the voltage goes outside of the range of what the transformer can regulate, then it draws power from the batteries like the other two to power the inverter, then to power your intersection. Range looks like this. So remember, the standby system was 100 and 132. These are the transfer points for the Alpha FXM 1100 model. So 112 to 132, we consider that line mode. So it's going to pass through the UPS, gaining conditioning there, but we don't need to raise or lower the voltage at that point because it's well within the operating range of your equipment. If it goes less than 112, it's going to get boosted up by the first step of boost. And then when it gets around 90, it's going to go to boost 2. So like we've got 2 steps of buck and 2 steps of boost. So it goes down to 85, less than 85. Now you're going to go to inverter mode. Same thing on the high end, greater than 132, you go into buck mode, 2 steps of buck, all the way up to 175 at the input. Outside of 175, now it goes to battery. So now you've got this huge operating range of 85 to 175. Utility can be anywhere within that, and the UPS is going to take care of the voltage for you. It's going to regulate it automatically, either using the transformer or using the inverter. You're set to go. System stays cool because the inverter is basically off, only generating maybe 100 BTUs of heat. Does not draw power from the batteries when it's doing the regulating in buck boost. And it's incredibly efficient because it spends most of its life just float charging the batteries. Another thing we talk about is transfer time. So transfer time is how long it takes from the UPS to make a change when something happens. So loss of utility, and you need to go to buck or boost, or you need to go to inverter mode backup. How long does it take till the UPS responds? How long are you without power for your equipment? And this didn't used to be too big a problem, but now as we get into more and more ITS type applications, there's other equipment that may not be designed for our world and as far as how we use it, and to make sure that it meets that criteria. So you just need to pay attention to that. If everybody follows the kind of the global standard of being able to handle like a 10 millisecond loss of power, you're good. And that's what most devices are kind of designed to, but not all. So you just have to be aware of that. So if you look on the left, this is the transfer time of an alpha unit, and you can see it's just a couple milliseconds drop, right? And then on the right is a standby system, and you can see it flat lines for quite a while, okay? Typically in traffic, as long as the transfer time is less than 65 milliseconds, your equipment should be fine and operate normally without issue, okay? But that's not always true because, as we bring in this other equipment, like I said, they may not be able to handle that. So the specs keep changing. We transfer in 2 to 5 milliseconds, but not everybody transfers that fast, okay? So, and you can see on the waveform on the right too, right when it started up again, there's actually a little transient that actually started when the inverter came on. So that one did not have a soft start. So that's not good either. But anyway, that's what. All right, and next is design. Let's talk about design. This is something I spend a lot of time on, helping customers, helping distributors, working out designs. Traffic signals can be fairly cookie cutter, but when you get into ITS applications, it's all over the map as to how much size and so forth. But even with intersections now, as we go to lower wattage LEDs, things change, and we can look at designs and look at ATC cabinet and things like that. So first thing we got to look at as we design a system is we need to know the load. Okay, how much power is being drawn by that intersection? Complete everything in it. And when you get that, then that helps you to then determine the size of the UPS, because you don't want one that's too big and you don't want one that's too small. You want it just right. It's got to be in the middle, because what happens is if you drive, get your load figured out, and you can design it with a larger UPS than needed. So let's say your load is 450 watts, which would be an average load of an intersection these days. Some are much lower, even 300, but let's say 450. All right. You could power that with an 1100 watt UPS. That's what most agencies use. But you could also power it with our 2000 watt UPS, right? And you think, hey, yeah, I've got lots of headroom there. Well, the problem is that inverters have efficiencies, just like everything else. And so you don't want to get too large of an inverter based on your load, because it becomes less efficient. It is designed to be able to handle higher loads. So you'll actually, on a 450 watt load, you'll actually get a couple more hours runtime with the 1100 than you would with a 2000 watt UPS, because it's designed to handle that higher power. Okay. All right. And then you also don't want it too small, because you don't want to overload the UPS. So when you design for an outdoor application, like we live in here, NEMA 3R, right? We don't have any air conditioners or anything like that in our cabinets. You want to make sure that you leave some headroom on that UPS. So typically you'll design it to a maximum of 75 to 80% of its rated capacity. So an 1100 watt UPS, for example, 825 to 880 watts is probably the max you'd want to put on it for long life and reliability because of the temperature that it lives in. Okay. Well, load also decides the runtime for batteries, right? So based on the load, right, and the size of battery that we put in, that gives us our runtime. So how much runtime do you want? Typical intersection, 450 watt load, batteries brand new on a nice summer day. You're going to get 8 hours plus out of those for runtime. So really good runtime. But if you're concerned about it, let's design and let's talk about it. We have calculators to help you do that. So figure out how much runtime you want for automatic, for flash, if you want flash, and then you can size the battery. Most users are using a 100 amp hour battery, 112 amp hour battery, something in that range. But you can get by with much smaller depending on what your runtime needs are. Okay. Once you know your UPS size and how much runtime you need, so you figured out your batteries, then you can talk about cabinets. What kind of cabinet do we want? The one on the left is the mini, right? That will hold up to 4 of the 56 amp hour batteries with a 450 watt load. That'll get you 4 hours plus of runtime. So that's pretty decent. And then SE481616 is the next one over to the right. That's the most common. Okay. And these can be piggyback mounted onto your cabinet, pedestal mounted. Okay. Next one over in the middle there, that's the 2216. So it's 6 inches wider, has the option for slide out shelves. Right. So then you have to think about, how are you going to mount these cabinets? Those can all be piggyback mounted or pedestal. And then on the far right is the SE481909, which is just a battery cabinet. So in that case, it piggybacks onto your cabinet. It's got an open back. Then you would put your UPS equipment inside your traffic signal cabinet. So a lot of different things to consider. Which cabinet do we want? Do we even want a cabinet? Some 170/20/70 installs. If you're not looking for an incredible amount of runtime, we actually have a solution that we can put, if you've got the room in your cabinet, 4 56 amp hour batteries in there with a UPS. So a lot of different things that we can do depending on what your needs are. Things to think about then are mounting. How are you going to mount it? Do you need generator transfer? Yes or no? Lots to consider. What about battery management? We have the AlphaGuard or the RBMS. AlphaGuard is a battery balancer. The RBMS gives you that, plus it does a lot of monitoring. I'll talk more about that coming up. So lots of things to consider when you do your design. Also, when you do your specifications, that really helps then get you the product that you're looking for. So you have a very short specification, you might not get the products that you're looking for. So things to consider, what type of UPS do you want? Get that in your spec. Line interactive. If you want double buck, double boost, get that in there with the voltage range. How much runtime do you need? Hours for automatic and flash. Also list the intersection load. Given a basic load, what you want it to be. You want it for how many hours at what wattage. Or just call out the size of the battery. Must be 100 amp hour battery, or 100 amp hour or greater, whatever. Call it out that way. Be direct. What size UPS are you looking for? Typically, most specs will say 1,000 watts is typically what it's written at. DC system voltage, most of the line interactive systems today are 48 volts. User interface and communication. They all have LCDs now these days. I remember way back when that was something that people would have to write in the spec, must have LCD. They all have that now. They don't all have embedded web pages though. Some of them you have to install software. So embedded web pages are nice because you just type in the IP address and you go right into our system. No software to install. Okay. Does it have email? Does it have SNMP? If those are things that are important to you, make sure you get that in your spec. The event logs are great. They give you a lot of information. I use them all the time as I help customers diagnose the power in their intersection or troubleshoot the UPS installation. It's a great tool. Ours happens to be 200 lines long. It's exportable, which is really valuable because they can send it to me. You can send it to tech support. You can save it for your own purposes. So you've got your logs and you can see what's been going on, how many outages you've had or how many times you went to buck or boost. It's all captured there. So it's very, very helpful information. And then transfer switch, generator, if you want that, make sure you get in your spec. Cabinet type and size, AlphaGuard or remote battery monitoring system. Warranty is important. Make sure you get that in there. We offer 5 years if you buy everything together as a package. Local support is important because with the age of the internet, we're seeing people bid stuff that are nowhere near the customer and have no support. So quality assurance, ISO manufacturer, right? We are ISO qualified. UL listed and marked, not simply tested to or meets. I see a lot of spec games being played on spec sheets here. They'll say meets this, but not actually being UL listed and marked. We are UL listed and marked. We've gone to the time and trouble to make sure the products are safe, and we've paid for it to make sure that, and they're marked. You want help doing specifications? I spend a lot of time helping customers with that. So either very specific or very generic. It's your call. See, we got a question come in from Joseph. Do you have solutions for running 3 closely spaced signal cabinets? What is the max distance from the battery cabinet? Good question. So yeah, if you've got, it all depends on your load. So remember, you got to think about the load size, right? So you've got the 1100 watt UPS. That's pretty much going to handle 1 cabinet. If you wanted to power 3 off the same, I guess it would really have to watch what your wattage adds up to be for those 3 cabinets, and make sure, of course, they all have full LED. You don't want to have any incandescent yellows out there, or older OPS heads that are not LED. Ran into that yesterday. So it's all about the load. So AC wise, distance isn't a problem. I've got some customers who will run a couple cabinets off of 1 UPS using the 2000 watt, but really it's about adding up the load. So for a 2000 watt UPS, you want to do max load 1600 watts on that, something like that, because of temperature. Battery cable distance, yeah, that's really crucial. The longer, of course, you are from the battery to the UPS, you want to make sure you have cable size to handle that. Most of our batteries are right in our cabinet, so that's not an issue. But we typically go 8 feet. We do have longer cable sets. I mean, you could go 10, 20 feet, but you have to keep upping the gauge of your wire due to loss. So you got to watch that. So yeah, if you've got a specific design in mind where you want to do that, certainly you can get with me later, get with TAPCO, and we can help design that. So let's see, Scott, what are the operational advantages over the competition? The Zinc 5. Wow, that's a whole can there. Okay, so there's differences, absolutely. So they're different topologies, really. This is line interactive AVR, automatic voltage regulation, which means it uses the transformer to regulate, and it also has the inverter. Zinc 5 is not a line interactive system. There is no transformer doing buck and boost. It is essentially a single conversion UPS. That means it's got an inverter, is what that means. So remember, double conversion's got first stage of conversion, second stage. Zinc 5 is a single stage, just has an inverter, okay? But there's no line interactive activity going on that way, all right? What they do have is they do have waveform monitoring. They call that as one of their stages where they actually monitor the waveform and they will transfer on noise. And then you can then adjust the sensitivity to that. I don't know how valuable that is. We also transfer on noise. You don't get to adjust it, but it's quite unusual that you would have that issue. And they handle that by going to backup. So better to have EMI and RFI filtering and things like that. So lot better runtime, nickel zinc and stuff. Maybe I'll talk about that when I get into batteries coming up here in just a couple slides. So don't have a comparison sheet available, but if anybody wants more details, I actually have another presentation that I go through where I actually talk in detail about every claimed item about nickel zinc. So there's quite a bit of difference. So, but let's hang on to the nickel zinc till I get to batteries in a minute. All right, UPS systems. So here's the FXM 1100 and the 2000. Same physical shape, enclosure unit, but you'll see on the front there what model it is. But 1100 is the most common one that is used across North America for backup signals. Left side is the DC breaker. Okay. Anytime you're going to make or break that battery cable connection, make sure you flip the breaker off so that you're not making the contacts on the battery input take the hit. Okay, then it's got a fan controlled by the UPS, Ethernet port, standard. Okay, 2-line LCD, rotatable display so that you can rotate that. So most of the time our UPS goes vertical. Okay, and then you would rotate the display so it's bright reading, so you don't have to tilt your head. Got 6 programmable dry contact relays in the right section. We've got the input breaker for AC, no output breaker. Very important. Most UPSs in the traffic market come with an AC output breaker, which is crazy because if your load happens to have a short in it and you trip that breaker, you're done. So we have instead overload protection, electronic overload protection. And then that way, when the load short disappears, we can come back up. So big difference. Most manufacturers will have it. It's actually a combo breaker. They'll have the input and the output breaker gang together. And that's a bad thing. But anyway, then we've got AC input and output terminals. And that side is also rotatable as well. Okay. We have the 350 and the 650, so 350 watt, 650 watt as well. These are typically used for ITS applications. Maybe you're backing up a weather station, cameras, any other type of maybe communications equipment. That's there, and these come in 24 or 48 volt versions, depending on what fits your need for runtime, how many batteries you're going to want. Okay. FXMHP, this is the new model. Just being released now. We're actually going to start receiving product here next month. So this will be kicked out, and same powertrain. So the guts are essentially the same. What's changed? You should notice a big difference there in the center, right? So 2-line display. Now we've got a 4.3-inch touchscreen display. Highly readable in bright sunlight. I can stick that in bright sun and I can see everything. So really powerful display. Ton of configurability with this thing. It's amazing what it can do. Web pages have all been redone. Major event logging and capturing of data and all kinds of things. So the configurability of this is just amazing. So this is the new unit coming out this fall. So stay tuned for that. Actually doing a webinar next week on this. So transfer switches, these are a must for intersections because they are your get by. So if you've got an issue with the UPS and you want to make sure, of course, that your intersection is power, you just flip the bypass switch. So removing the UPS does not prevent the intersection from working. So that's where you've got a transfer switch there. You also have the ability then by using the UPS supply breaker to test the UPS. We also have a UGTS, that's universal generator transfer switch. And then so you can use that for hooking up your generator to, and then that will handle that. Those can be shelf mount, wall mount, rack mount as shown below. Very important to have that. Next is batteries. So we've changed. We're always looking for the next thing, working and improving. And we sold the GXL gel battery for many, many years. It was a good battery, really good. Installed in the 90s, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of those out there. But we're always looking for something better. And so we've migrated now to the XTV. So the gel line is no longer available as of about a year and a half ago or so. We're now the XTV. It's an AGM battery, and it's almost an AGM gel hybrid the way it's designed, but it's technically an AGM battery. It's got a 12-year design life. So where the GXL had a 10-year design life, what that means is as long as the temperature is below 77 F its whole life, and depending on the amount of cycles, you will likely get that lifespan. Of course, these live outdoors, and so that's different. So most users were seeing 6 to 8 years with their gel line. With the 12-year design life XTV, we're expecting 8+. And they've been in the field now for, 6+ years, almost 7 now, and they're doing phenomenal. They're a really, really good battery. They come in 4 sizes, 56, 80, 100, and 112 amp hour. We did some comparison. We sent it out to a third-party lab to get it tested. Let's see how this battery really performs, because we didn't jump into this lightly. We actually had our broadband telecom group use this for 5 years before we adopted it in traffic, because we're mission critical. So you can see the red line is the XTV. Left side is % of rated capacity, and the bottom is how many cycles we've done to this battery. And so heat is what kills a battery. And so they would put these in a chamber at 140 degrees Fahrenheit. They'd sit there for 28 days. They'd take them out, throw a 25 amp load on them, discharge them, throw them back in the chamber again. Remember, the GXL is a good battery. That's the blue line. It was a really good battery, but look how much better the XTV is. It just hangs in there at 100% for a long, long time, very solid. So very impressed with that. All right, and then yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. So back to zinc, nickel zinc battery. Nickel zinc battery is an interesting battery. Edison invented it a long time ago. He dropped it because there were issues. It was nowhere near as good as batteries of the day, and being a lead acid type. And so he dropped it. There were problems with the technology. A thing where the plates would then grow together is called dendrites. The plates would essentially grow particles across and short out. They didn't have good shelf life. They didn't have good cycle life. Anyway, that was all supposedly corrected in the 80s, and the battery then progressed further, and then it was brought into the traffic space in 2012. Okay. Nice thing about a nickel zinc is that it's a little bit lighter, but it's not significantly lighter. The claims will be that it's like up to 70%, but that's until you stick it into a package. Then it's not so light. It doesn't really save much space because if you compare to a lead acid battery like these, if you were to take 4 of the 100 amp hour batteries that we use, you would need 9 packs, 9 500 watt packs of the nickel zinc to equal that, which actually takes up more space in your cabinet. So it's all about runtime. If you're looking for shorter runtime, if you don't need the 8, the 9, the 10, the 12 hours of runtime, and you want a smaller solution, go to the 56 amp hour. I even have 9 and 11 amp hour solutions out there. So it's all about what you need as a customer. What type of runtime do you want? We have every once in a while I run across a customer say, we really don't have a lot of outages. I mean, like if we do, they're like short, 5 minutes maybe max. We really want the line regulation of the buck boost, and so then they'll throw a small battery system on there that covers them for those short durations. So if that's what you need, we've got solutions for that too. So what I found with most customers with nickel zinc is that they're not satisfied. So you really have to test it, see what you think. All batteries are affected by temperature, including nickel zinc, and so you need to take these things into account if you're going to a smaller battery. Temperature becomes more and more important, right? Because you've got to make sure you've left yourself some headroom. Because here in the northern states, battery capacity at freezing changes, right? So with the XTV at freezing, you've lost maybe 8% of the ability of its power. Okay, with nickel zinc or with gel, you've lost about 25%. Now it comes back when it warms up, but that's something you need to calculate into your runtime if you are looking to get to a smaller battery pack. So with a 100 amp hour battery, you've got plenty of room, right? Because most of your outages are going to be above either at freezing because of an ice storm or at 90 plus degrees because you've got thunder cells coming through. But anyway, okay, let's go on. AlphaGuard is a battery balancer. That's good for adding life to your batteries, because if you've got one battery that's aging and falling out of spec quicker than the others in the string, it can affect the life of the other 3. This helps minimize that by balancing the charge across. Also allows for replacement of just one battery and can add 1 more year of warranty depending on how you bought the system. All right. So we sold that for a long time. Then we've gone to this, the RBMS. But they're both AlphaGuard still available. But this is, if you really want to manage your batteries and make your life easier, this is the way to go. So the remote battery monitoring or management system, this thing is phenomenal. It monitors up to 8 batteries, comes with sensors for 4. That's the typical size. What's so good about it is that it measures the individual battery voltage, temperature, and admittance. Okay, admittance is the state of health of your battery. Okay, most agencies find out that their batteries are no good when they have an outage, and that's kind of counterintuitive, right? That's not when you want to find out, because if you're doing PMs once a year, you've got a good chance if you've got a battery that's failing and you don't catch it, it's going to happen, and then you're going to know when you have the outage. With this device, if you're connected to your network, it's going to send you an email or SNMP trap and tell you that, hey, you've just hit an alarm with the battery. So you're going to know before you have that issue. So it's great for that. Built-in web pages, so you can look at it remotely. It's also got Lookout network management software. You can monitor up to 1,000 of these. And it also balances the batteries. So you would not use both the AlphaGuard and the RBMS. You would use one or the other. So why? Well, cost savings, right? because you know the status of your batteries. You're not doing the 5-year change out, which a lot of agencies will do. They'll say, yeah, at 5 years, I'm going to put all new batteries in, whether I need it or not. A couple things wrong with that philosophy. Number one, you don't catch the premature failure of a battery, right? The dark intersection I just talked about. And then on the back side of that, you just threw away 3+ years life of a battery. So that's money being thrown away there. So doing it the 5 years is, you know, if that's all you got, I guess that's all you got. But this is a much better method, because now you can be strategic and figure out exactly when your batteries need to be changed, because you know the state of health. Guesswork is now gone, right? So a great tool for budgeting and battery replacements. This is a screenshot of what it looks like. And you can see each battery immediately, what the status is. This one's currently under alarm. And so, yeah, it's a great tool. All right, so here's the enclosures. Like I said, SE48 1616, that tells you the size, 48 inches tall, 16 wide and deep. Pole mount, pedestal mount, piggyback, whatever you might like. 2216, slightly wider, also has the option of slide out shelves. All right, there's the 1909 battery only. And then there's the mini, which is great for ITS applications. That comes with either a 350 watt or a 1,000 watt UPS. So very much in the FXM family, but it's not like you couldn't put the FXM 1100 in this cabinet. It wouldn't fit. It's slightly physically different in size. So it comes with a mini 1000. So it looks just like it when you bring it up on the web browser, and it's got direct contacts and all that good stuff. And this will hold up to 4 of the 56 amp hour batteries, which is 4 hours of runtime with the 56, 450 watt load. Communication, standard. Didn't used to be. If you've got an older Alpha system and you don't have an Ethernet port on it and you want it, you can contact TAPCO and they can get you a card and you can add it to the unit. Default address 192.168.0.90. User configurable, embedded web server, so you don't have to install software. Generates email and SNMP. And the web browser is really good. It's really comprehensive, gives you a ton of information, and it's well thought out. Just a lot of detail there. It's not a third-party type thing. We actually decided what our web pages look like. Most other manufacturers just have some third-party app, and it doesn't give you a ton of info. Of course, it has RS-232, kind of a throwback, but still being used sometimes. You can use any terminal program. We do have one of ours, which makes it look a lot like the web browser interface, but you don't have to. No proprietary software needed. Standard cable, but most people are using the Ethernet. So let's say you don't have Ethernet out at your cabinet, but you've got some type of communications to your controller, right? Maybe you've got dial-up, or maybe you've got cell modem or something, FSK if it's really old. Anyway, you would use then the dry contact relay outputs of the UPS to the alarm inputs of your controller to get that information back. So you can at least know what was going on. So yep, I'm in backup, or hey, I'm at low battery now. I thought you might want to know that. So the dry contacts are very powerful for those type of notifications. Getting it through your controller, taking your intersection to flash if you want to after a certain amount of time, or what most agencies do, they'll say when the batteries get to 40%, take the intersection to flash, because that's an extended outage. And that will get you more runtime because it's about half the load since you're in wig-wag at that point. So yeah, so very, very good tool to use the direct contact relays. Most agencies use them, but not all, and there's a lot of different ways you can program them and use them. Let's say you've got Ethernet, but you don't have central software. So now you at least have a network connection to the UPS. So you can have it set up to email you. You can browse it to see what's going on and make your own setting changes. You can have it send SNMP. So, and you can still use your controller input. So then you have to decide then, yeah, how do we want to manage that UPS information? Maybe I want it both to come from the controller and the UPS, right? Central software. So if you've got the whole ball of wax there, then you would then definitely use the alarm inputs, because the controller central software that manages the controller, right? So then you're going to have UPS input goes into it with the direct contacts, and then you handle it that way. I do have some agencies out there that will use both. They say, you know, I want to be sure I get that notification. So just in case things aren't working right, we're going to have it come, and I'm going to get an email both from the UPS and from the central software, I want to be notified both ways. So totally up to you how you want to have that go. But we've got communication there for you. All right. So here we are.
Today in the training. Joe Harvey will take over and take us through some of our newer products here on the adaptive line and discuss a little bit about our mass transit notification system and the NTCIP boards here that we have. Joe?
Thanks, Aaron. So I'll introduce myself first. I've been with TAPCO for 7.5 years at this point, and with the TAPCO's acquisition of Adaptive late in 2019, transitioned over to a product management role and basically covering everything that Adaptive has to offer. What we'll be covering here today is going to focus on the ITS side. We do have 2 other vertical markets that Adaptive covers, but those are generally more in the indoor application, outdoor type, mass notification types. So if there are any additional questions, there's some information that we can provide, or TAPCO's website is always a great resource to be able to gather any additional information. As you can see, the agenda, introduced to Adaptive for anyone that isn't familiar with, go over a few component characteristics pretty quickly, just so everyone's kind of on the same page of some repetitive nomenclature that I'll be covering. We'll go through the product overview. There are 6 different sign types inside the ITS family. Wrap up with the product comparisons overview, and then any questions that the group might have here. So roll right in. Adaptive has been in business since 1978. As you can see from the collage to the right, they've been supplying a multitude of sign types into a wide-ranging marketplace. You can see that this has covered everything from the urban and ITS side into casino, cinema, even into outdoor displays. They have been a partner of TAPCO's actually for 20 to 30 plus years, as TAPCO has held the Wisconsin ITS and service maintenance contracts. That's really where the synergy between the 2 companies started and why it made so much sense for the acquisition here in late 2019. Adaptive has been in the ITS marketplace for over 30 years at this point. They have been an expert in the industry, providing product to Wistat, but throughout the country, really providing a scalable solution that is adaptable to really any customer's need. One of the great things that both TAPCO and Adaptive manufacturing side does is being able to meet customer expectation and need. It isn't really an off-the-shelf product. We're able to provide solutions that are a little more unique than what you might see out in the general road space. On the right-hand side here is what you see some of the use cases of the ITS signs here that I'll be covering, going over the 6 product families inside the ITS roadway. As I spoke to a couple of the components that you'll hear quite a bit about here as we move through, pitch is first. That is, simply put, the distance between the LEDs center to center. So the tighter the pitch, the more detail that you're going to have on the signs. The larger the pitch, the more distance you're going to get, but up close the resolution fades. So depending on application is generally where you're going to see which pitch is actually going to be used. Viewing angles is next. Again, just based on what type of application you have is going to determine what type of viewing angle you're going to need. Inbound traffic is going to determine that. So as you can see from the infographic or slide or the picture there, excuse me, it's really just based on how you're going to have your traveling motorists inbound and interacting with that DMS. Finally is character height. MUTCD simply states that anything greater than 45 miles per hour, you must use an 18-inch character on the roadway. Anything less, you can use 12-inch. You can get into smaller characters out on arterials that we do offer, but that's the general standpoint and what we will generally design to when having the conversation about what application you have and what product will fit that need. The first product I'm going to cover here is the Alpha Express 9700. The 9700 is part of our Amber series. We do have 3 Amber and 3 full color split between the 6 families here. The 9700 is a walk-in unit. The all Amber products are at that 30-degree viewing angle that we had discussed, and the 9700 is at a 2.6 inch or 66 millimeter. Millimeter is kind of just the industry standard there, but this is the largest sign and a over the highway application for this product here. One of the biggest selling features of all Amber products and for the 9700 here is going to be the independent LED circuitry. It is actually a as we call it, Zener diode that allows the individual circuitry of the LED to not be interrupted or fail if a single LED goes out. This is also a great benefit because we're actually able to drive the 8 LEDs that make up an individual diode on the 9700 at about a 60% rate. This is going to lengthen the longevity of those LEDs. The sun is always fluctuating based on ambient light source, but it's really only being driven at that 60% in order to meet the standard. So you're getting a lot more life out of the 10-year expectancy for these LEDs. The 9700 is built to about a 20-year lifespan with the walk-in serviceability. Great selling or benefit feature there is going to be the ability to not have lane closure and for any service technician to not be out in any inclement weather. In Wisconsin, in the winter months especially, being able to be inside of the sign and being able to troubleshoot or do any service work is definitely a great benefit. The adverse is when we're talking to customers down in the south, being able to get out of some of the strong storms that they have and the wind gust. It's really a great feature to not have your service technicians out in the elements and being able to limit the closures that you might have, during any time of service need. The next product in the Amber family is the 8700. The 8700 kind of stretches the complete gamut of use case for Amber. It is a over the highway, over roadway application, but as you can see from the photo, it does allow some scalability to bring the overall size of the sign down quite a bit. The 8700 is a front access. That bottom right-hand picture is the internal view of the components, but it basically means that the LED displays are actually flipped up for serviceability. So a technician would be out on a catwalk and being able to interact with that sign. This is basically just taking the overall structure of the sign, that footprint down quite a bit. Again, this is a 66 millimeter with a 30-degree viewing angle, so you're going to have a long distance of interaction between the motoring public and the sign, and that 30-degree viewing angle is going to limit sometimes some of the inbound arterials onto the viewing, but it does give a much further distance here. Just like the 9700, the 8700 does have the Zener diode. The 87 and the next product, 8600, both have a 6 LED diode. So this allows us to drive it at about a 70% of total max, again, being able to lengthen the longevity of the LEDs themselves. The additional benefit that Adaptive has over our competition, final bullet point here that you see on the slide, is the cooling of the sign itself is done internally for the most part. So we are keeping any dust, particulates, anything that the sign is basically interacting with out on the roadway out of the sign. There is internal fans that actually circulate the air throughout the system, and only in extreme heat conditions or potential failure of any equipment would outside air actually be brought in to circulate and cool down the equipment. A lot of the industry is just recycling that air constantly, and we have seen in many applications, anywhere that's near the oceans, that salt water can get in there, corrode. Anything out in a dust or heavy sediment area, you can actually see the buildup of dust and particulates all over the componentry internal. With the want of being able to have these signs out there for the minimum of 10 years and really only having to service or go out and check on anything either twice a year, maybe one time a year during standard servicing, being able to keep any of those particulates, dust, or environmental factors out of these signs is a giant success that we've had and a fantastic feature and benefit of the Amber series here. The 8600 is the next in line. It's basically the predecessor of the 8700. This is a much smaller sign, so you're seeing a lot more urban applications. This will be toll authorities inside of cities. As you see here, some of the truck parking and availability. Again, it is a front access sign, so the overall footprint of the sign itself is much smaller than our walk-ins. It is that 30-degree viewing angle, but this one is actually a 44 millimeter. So you're getting a little more visibility on these up close, and that's where we need that interaction inside the city. Traveling public is at a lower speed, so they're able to get much closer, read that sign for a little bit longer than some of the ones out on the highway. It again still has the Zener diode and the internal circulation of air. We also have, there's many specs, but the ability to powder coat any of the sign faces or the structure itself, and a removable border panel, which is really for serviceability, but also some request of just being able to have that additional contrast between sign and border itself. The ratio, again, and legibility definition is just based on that 44 millimeters. So it's really giving you a lot more viewability inside the city and your traveling public being at a much lower speed. The first of our color application is the Alpha Express 3500. All of the full color signs are going to be a 20 millimeter. So it is our highest definition sign, and this is the ability to add graphics basically. The 3500 is a front access sign, so it comes standard with a remote power supply. So what that basically means is the power supply of the system and some of the serviceability is pulled out of the sign, and it is actually held inside any of the roadside signal cabinets on a rack. It really helps if there's any failures or diagnostics to be able to pull those power supplies out of the sign. You're also able to then greatly decrease the footprint. So as some of the applications are shown here, you have a toll authority, some parking possibilities, and then also a variable speed limit sign in the bottom left-hand corner there. So it gives you a lot of different option and flexibility. Different states have different standards. WSDOT is slowly looking at the full color. A lot of what is produced and manufactured throughout the state has been the amber, but there are some states that standard now is the full color option here. And inside of city and county limits and some of the signs that have been put up, specifically around TAPCO in the Milwaukee area, Wauwatosa and around the zoo has a couple of these signs that have gone up, and we're seeing more and more requests for the full color as they just become more industry acceptable. All of the full color have the redundant current sharing power supplies. This is another benefit to the sign and customer, basically extending the life of an internal component. So the power supplies are constantly sharing that current. If any one fails, the other one will pick up and be able to drive until any serviceability can be taken care of. But it's also just extending the life expectancy of those. So a lot of our competitors, or what you additionally see in the marketplace, is they have redundant power supplies. It's kind of a need and a spec that a lot of state agencies use, but one of them is basically off at all times while the other one is taking the full load. With being able to use both of them, we're making sure, A, that both are up and running, and that we are having that sharing current, that both of them are being used. So if one dies and it flips over and you have either a surge or just a bad component and that one fails as well, you're kind of dead in the water there. So being able to share those, and if one drops off, being able to pick up allows you to go out there, service it, and be able to catch it before you really have a complete loss of sign. The 2020 is the next family for the full color, as well as a front access sign. This does have the 70-degree viewing angle and the 20-millimeter pitch. The two applications that you can see here, one is in Georgia. Actually, I believe these are both in Georgia, excuse me. The first one is for the new Atlanta Braves ballpark. The city actually is looking to be able to use these signs to direct the inbound traffic for either the Braves games or just an event they might be having. And they're actually changing based on the volume of traffic in those events, what the signs are actually stating. So as you can see here, normally it's just identifying lane use and what road that you might be exiting onto. But during the event, they're actually switching over to get people in and out much quicker to specific parking lots and just getting the traveling public off of the freeway and the arterial much quicker. So they actually swapped out those two signs on the left, our static signs that you see in the photo. They've actually swapped those out completely since they saw the great success and furthering the project as they're moving forward here. The big selling feature of the full color signs are going to be the ability and use of graphics. As you can see on the bottom left there, you do see a construction zone warning sign. So you're able to put up MUTCD graphics and be able to meet the color request and minimum standards, being able to allow the traveling public again to interact a little more quickly with a symbol that they're used to seeing or a color associated to a certain event, and being able to actually kind of subconsciously understand either what they're traveling into or what the message is trying to say without actually having to read the entire message. So being able to understand that you're entering a construction zone, some sort of emergency, some of the amber alerts and silver alerts, adding additional graphics are really just grabbing the traveling motorist attention and being able to get that message across a little bit better than just a standard amber sign has been able to do. The last of the full color signs is the 2000. Like the 9700, this is a walk-in sign. The 2000 is a over highway or freeway application. It is a large sign, so again, we have structures involved and the internal walkway of these signs. So as you can see, the two graphics here, you have the additional add-on and just scale and size of these signs themselves. Now, much like the 9700, this is a great benefit to be able to get any sort of serviceability or work that needs to be completed off the roadway and not having to actually close down lanes, as you're able to service from the inside of the sign. It's also, in this case with the 2000, as you can see, able to meet the MUTCD guideline on graphics of the 94 West and 575 here. So the background is met and the shield coloring is met for both of these. The 2000 is a 30-degree viewing angle. And again, with that 20-millimeter distance in between the two or the LEDs. Again, redundant sharing current sharing, I'm sorry, power supplies. And the walk-ins do provide for both either a left, right, or dual side access. So depending on the application, if it's on the middle of the highway potentially, or it's just state spec where it needs to be met for the doors, we do have the ability to have that on both sides if needed. One of the great benefits, again, that Adaptive has is the roadside controller. So the Alpha Express 1550 Plus is basically the brains behind the operation. And what we're doing here is basically pulling the controller out of the sign itself and being able to rack mount it. It's a standard 19-inch rack mount in the side of a ITS or signal cabinet. The controller is basically being able to give you diagnostics. You're able to push messaging, test, do some repair there on the side of the road, but it is just like the walk-in cabinets, allowing you to not actually have to have any lane closures. You're getting any workers out of the traveling public's roadway there, and really just providing a safety measure for any service that might actually need to be completed. The diagnostics you can check on: fan test, pixel out, power supply. As we spoke to, if the redundant supplies go out, any of that is being able to be completed on the roadside rather than up at the sign itself. Additionally, this controller can actually control up to 16 individual signs. Now, most applications don't have the need for that, but if you start thinking about HOV lanes or lane use, where you're going to have either inside city or at toll authorities, where you're going to have those constant changing based on traffic flow and congestion, that's where just having a single controller being able to do a multitude of signs is going to be a great benefit and cost reduction, where some of the other either competitors or industry isn't currently offering that. So at this point, I do believe 16 is the highest number in the industry right now. So we do have that feather in our cap, but it's really just a great safety measure and a excellent ability to lower cost in some of those arterial applications. The web interface, this is basically a what you see is what you get software application to be able to remotely control that 1550 controller or any of the signs. So the same diagnostics that you're able to get roadside, plugging directly into the interface, you're able to do with the web controller. This is how Adaptive and TAPCO are currently troubleshooting remotely, being able to IP directly into the controller itself and be able to run a lot of those tests and diagnostics. It allows kind of that expertise to be with you. If it's either a new contractor that has your maintenance contract, a system that you're not ultimately comfortable with or used to troubleshooting, Adaptive can be hand in hand with you, as well as any initial troubleshooting or notification of an outage that you might have. Wow, somebody just took control there. I apologize. Hold on one second, team. There we go. There is 3 predefined user access levels, so you're able to provide access both at a controller level or the web interface level to either have read-only, a user, or administrator. That really allows for some urban or arterial applications to grant access to either police or construction to be able to potentially change messages if it is a special event, if it's at a fairground, again, that kind of Atlanta ballpark situation where you're able to change out quickly during set times where you don't need to have overseeing of ITS personnel. They're able to go in with predetermined messaging already up, be able to make those switches for you. So it has a secure password for each individual user, and you're able to tell at any given point from that administrator level who is accessing and who has rights at those varying levels. The product comparison here is just a final wrap up. You can find this in the brochure that TAPCO has on our website. It is a new offering from the former Adaptive. If you have seen that, I think the last time they built that out was 2016. But basically a quick comparison for both anybody that is looking for a project and potentially seeing what sign might be best use case. Just general review of what I went through here. It's pretty easy to go through, has a lot of the compliances that these signs have to meet, both from a national level and state level, and just really a specification from these signs being out on the roadway as long as they have been at this point. So there's a snapshot of the use cases again of what I've been speaking about and where you can kind of see these signs in their environment. If there's any questions specifically about any of the products or any application, we can always absolutely answer those when they come up here. So let me see. At this point, I don't see any questions in our chat feature. I don't know if there's anything out there. The second portion of what I'm going to get into is some of our distributed product. It's an area that I cover from my product management responsibilities, but want to give a moment here if anybody has any questions specifically to the DMS portion of our conversation here. So I'll move into the second portion of my presentation here. So this is going to revolve around three areas, basically: radar feedback signs, blank out signs, and work zone product. So Aaron will get into a little bit about some of the contracting opportunities with his IWS presentation, and kind of speak to what TAPCO's benefits are as just a company in totality. But we specialize in three areas: manufacturing, service, and in this area, distribution. So we have partners throughout the country and throughout the industry that are widely known and that we represent nationwide for them, basically with our sales arm. The first one here is the radar feedback line that we offer from TrafficLogix. TrafficLogix introduced their Evolution series, which is basically a poly-backed instead of aluminum-backed or structure for the radar feedback sign. Obviously, there's a big cost savings that came along with this, but one of the best benefits and what we both touted is the ability to take any one of these signs and move them around the city and not have really a stationary piece of equipment. Being able to get the sign up and move it into different needed areas, either daily or weekly, is a giant feature. And being able to take that weight out from the sign was kind of a no-brainer when TrafficLogix went ahead and did that. As you see here, they do offer an entire line of radar feedback signs from an 11-inch up to 18, and that is what the numbers are representing there: 11, 12, 15, and 18, from static to full matrix opportunities here. We do offer 4 different color options, and the other great selling feature, and I'll get into kind of the feature benefit of it itself, is the data collection and cloud compatibility. So TrafficLogix, at this point, with any of the purchase of an Evolution series sign, is including their data collection and cloud service for 1 year free of charge. The offering of this and the benefit to the agency is being able to collect that data constantly and being able to pull that into either what TrafficLogix offers here in their cloud service, and being able to actually analyze that data. So if it's either from a standpoint of getting 85th percentile, if it's time and date range, specific areas to be able to understand either congestion or just general speeding patterns, you're able to gather all that data remotely and be able to keep those signs up and running without having to go out and service them, other than really just moving them from location to location. You can see the platform here. The cloud is a Windows-based software. TrafficLogix and TAPCO team up to basically do an introduction and demonstration for any customer that purchases one of these signs and takes you through their software, gets you comfortable, and allows at any point customer service or technical support to be able to walk you through any of the reporting or features that you're trying to set up inside the sign. So this is something that we have seen a great success with because of just the ability to gather that data. And as the industry pushes more and more to being able to be kind of Internet of Things, but data heavy, having a tool that automatically configures all that and gives you a completed report rather than just data points has been a gigantic success that both us and TrafficLogix have seen through the 2 years that they're offering this free of charge. TrafficLogix does have 2 new products that they have brought to market this year. And those are the 2 top products that you see on the images on the right-hand side. The first is the speed tracker. If you think of this, it's more or less a radar feedback sign without the digital output to the traveling motorist. So you're still getting all of the same data and collection that you would with a radar feedback sign in that cloud software, but this is both a discrete and much smaller product than what the radar feedback sign is. You can either put it up in an area where you don't want people to know that you're gathering data or taking a look at where speeding issues may occur. But again, because of size, you're able to get this moved around quite freely and gather as much data as you would need. One of the great features with the software is that once you move any piece of equipment, the data point in all of its data actually stays where you have that sign set up. So if you decide to put it out on 1st and State Street on westbound traffic and just turn it to eastbound traffic, those 2 data points actually stay there. If you move it throughout the city 20, 30, 40 different times throughout the year, you actually continue to just gather all of that data. And at the end of the year or the end of the cycle of data that you're looking to collect, you're able to gather everything that you've had out on the roadway for that entire time frame, and as long as you have the service. So right now there's no cap on that. That data is held for you under your account, and you're able to access that at any point. Now you're able to go back and put the sign specifically at that feature, at that location, and start collecting that data from a year's standpoint or just 2 days, depending on how long any individual component has been removed from the site. So great feature there. It's also without a digital output. The speed tracker is able to stay out if it's just battery operated much longer than some of just the signs. So again, usability and ease of use are greatly increased here. The second of the 2 products introduced is a variable message sign. That is the trailer with the speed limit and your speed sign displayed there. So this kind of fits that intermediary of the radar feedback sign that is pole mounted and stationary, and below the 3-line message or full matrix message boards that you see out on the roadway, and I'm sure many of you have in use currently. So it is at its core a radar feedback sign. You are still basically just outputting what the speed limit is and what the traveling public is headed. You're able to do the same data collection as any of the other systems here. The great thing though is really for enforcement or some of the specialty events. So a lot of these systems are being sold to PD, city, county, where they're able to have them transportable and being able to put them in areas where it's either a very small footprint or that they're able to put up a custom message and do a lot of the same things you're seeing on a 3-line message board for honestly about half the cost of ownership there. So the trailer, as you see, does make it mobile. It is solar powered or battery operated. From this standpoint, we are able to also pole mount this if it needs to be more of a semi-permanent application, and it would then be AC powered at that point. The other items below are really just options or features for any one of the signs, different trailer types or dollies to be able to make some of the feedback signs more mobile and user-friendly. So if it's something that either a PD or we have a lot of schools that actually use the dolly, being able to put that up either at start of school, if they have odd entry and exit points within the facility and they're just trying to raise awareness, that's where we see a lot of these more mobile applications actually coming up. Let me see here. Another question. It can. Now, where the on-pavement tube counters has and I'm sorry, I'm answering the question here. Can the speed tracker replace on-pavement tube counters? It can, but where tube counters are able to get the multi-lane a little more accurately, the radar is just a Doppler radar. It's more ideally used for single lane application just because you're not able to actually lay out the lanes and be able to pick that up. We do use these in 2-3 lane applications, but some of the vehicles do get missed just based on accuracy issues you see with any Doppler radar. So it does offer you that ability, but depending on the specific need, we definitely want to talk to you about what you're looking for and if it is the best fit here. The next portion that I want to talk about is blank out signs. The blank out signs that TAPCO offer, again, is a distributed item, but these are more often built into our manufacturing process rather than just sold as a separate unit. We work with Signaltech, who is a very reputable, well-known leader in the blank out sign industry. They have been a partner of TAPCO's for many years here and have really worked with us to develop a product that is easily combined with our IWS, the intelligent warning system. So as you can see here, there's some wrong way applications, over height, some different train ones, but where TAPCO is excelling and using these is kind of on the integration side. A lot of requests that we're seeing are from the areas where there's not a need or actually should not be a static sign, that we are just enhancing with some of our LEDs and beacons, and that this is only specific during a certain event. Otherwise, they don't want the sign up and visible to traveling public, potentially causing confusing messaging or just over signage that we kind of see out on the roadway. They are able to be powered solarly. That's something that TAPCO provides, AC, and really are just a integration piece to the entire TAPCO IWS offering. Some of the features here and customization that kind of meet our market needs. There are a wide range of colors, different sizes and fits, as you see here. This wrong way application, the vertical one, is actually a project that TAPCO did down in Georgia and had Signaltech actually build out for us and is in use today. So with their ability and understanding of our needs and our customer needs, they've definitely been a great partner for us and is another option that you can kind of think about when Aaron goes through his portion of the presentation and you start to see some of the LED beacon or RRFB applications where a blank out sign might be able to be used. The final slide here and area of conversation is going to be our work zone devices. As you can see, there are quite a few of them in the industry that we represent, from arrow signs and 3-line message boards all the way up to portable traffic signals and TMS here. So we are a reseller and distributor nationwide of many of the top manufacturers. So your Wanco, Hill & Smith, Verimac, Horizon Signal. The attenuator there is actually from Verdagro, the blade. You may see, if you're on our email list, a notification going out of just some of the updates and the great test results that attenuator has had. But if there is a application or use case TAPCO does have the resources. We often like to be viewed as just on the consult side, where we have expertise in all these different areas, and also the partnerships to be able to just find an answer if needed, where other companies might not be able to just provide answers, might just be more of a resell or application base. So if you do have questions in these areas, please let us know. Again, we have the connections throughout the industry. We have these products sold throughout the country. If something comes up or just general question need, definitely let us know. It's more of our pleasure to help out and be a part of the conversation than us trying to sell you something. So visit our website. There are thousands of different items that we have as a distributor throughout the nation, but work zone specifics, we're definitely growing our knowledge base and our offering, and being a partner as both WISDOT and the state continue to use and grow these applications, and as they continue to be part of the smart workforce and products that are out on the roadway. So that is end of the presentation that I have for you here.
Hello, thanks for that, Aaron. Pleasure to be here with everyone on this Wednesday during the middle of the week. Hope everyone has enjoyed their time with TAPCO thus far. You've gotten a lot of good information, and I'm looking forward to hopefully providing some good educational information here myself, and get you guys updated on what the latest is with Polera and our APS technology. So to begin, Polera is introducing the new INS product, and I'm not sure how many of you may have already utilized our eNav or our iNav technology, but INS is the next the next in the line of some really good quality APS products. The INS basically is coming out of listening to what customers are telling us that they're looking for and they need in terms of APS. So there's a lot of new features that have been added here, and look forward to sharing those with you. Probably one of the most significant changes is one of the most significant changes to the system is that we have added a new Bluetooth 5 to our buttons. And what that is going to enable you to do is be able to connect various different devices to these buttons. So we'll talk about a pet app coming up shortly, and multiple people can connect at one time. It also is going to provide much further distance for connecting our buttons in terms of syncing them up and being able to provide information back and forth to customers, or to users, sorry. One other thing that's really kind of cool about the new technology and listening to what our customers are telling us is, in the past we had a 3-wire version of our buttons, and we had a 2-wire version of our buttons. And so depending upon your application, this may require you to hold 2 different types of buttons in your inventory, which of course runs up your cost, and you have to keep up with extra different devices and make sure that you're supporting the proper button for the field application. And that's no longer an issue. With a new INS, that's one button, and it serves both a 3-wire application and a 2-wire application. In our 3-wire application, all we're doing is simply mounting a device in the signal head that is stepping down the voltage from 120 volts to 24 volt DC, and running a cable down to the button, and all of the information that the button needs in terms of whether the signal is in walk or don't walk is provided through this connectivity. In our 2-wire version, we have a device that will go in your cabinet, and that's either a shelf mount version or a card wrap version. Now the card wrap version is primarily for application in 332, 336 Caltrans type cabinet environments. And the shelf mount version is for applications in NEMA applications, whether it's a TS1, TS2, type of application, and whether you're using a full BIU or what we call a hybrid system. So as I mentioned before, one button, you get to choose what type of system you want, whether it's a 3-wire or a 2-wire, and you just have to keep one button in inventory. And then our 2-wire connectivity has the exact same functionality as our older iNavigator product, but everything is backwards compatible. So if you had an existing system that was in place and you started purchasing the new INS button, and one of your IN buttons went bad for some reason, you could take the new INS button and stick it in the middle of that system and everything will work perfectly. The same way, if you have a 2-wire system and the ICCU malfunctions for some reason and you have to replace it, that device will also provide you that backwards compatibility from IN to INS type of system across the board. As I mentioned, with the new Bluetooth 5, we now have a better range, and we're a very conservative group of engineers, and so we don't like to say what that range is because there's so many different variables that can come into play. But I was recently in a presentation, and we were talking about the new Bluetooth 5, and one of our really smart customers got out his iPhone and used this really cool technology called Google and looked it up and said, well, it looks like you can go up to 800 feet. And I, of course, replied back, well, you said that, not me. So don't put me on the hook for that. But we can give much broader ranges, and the speed is so much faster too. So if you've ever done an update, whether you've done a firmware update or you've uploaded a new audio file to an IN button, if you compare that now to the new INS, you'll find that the speeds are so much faster. So whether it's a firmware upgrade or whether you're adding a new audio file, the amount of time that you're going to be at the cabinet or at a PED button is going to be reduced. So that's a welcome new feature. Also, the system is modular in design, and so I'm going to jump ahead here. So it's modular in design, and what that means is the button is assembled so that you don't have to worry about if you have a problem with the button, you don't have to pull the whole button off and send that back for repair. You actually have pieces and parts that you can keep in inventory, or you can order if you need them, and you can repair buttons without having to worry about sending back the entire button for repair. It just makes overall maintenance responsibilities better and easier to manage. Jump back here. So another thing that we're doing, and the difference between the INS and the IN series buttons, is we're utilizing the same firmware. So the same firmware that runs on the IN button also runs on the INS button. And so there you can see why we have this backwards compatibility that's very easy for us to manage. And then there are also the additional Bluetooth features that I mentioned, not just in terms of range, but also in terms of speed, and more importantly, in terms of multiple different devices being able to connect on Bluetooth to a single button. And so that's where we can talk about our PED app. And the PED app is just basically a free app that a citizen can download onto their phone, whether they're visually impaired or sighted. Either way, they can utilize that technology to remotely place a call to a button, find out what button they're communicating with, access that button, and then get the walk signal to cross the street, all the while being informed of what is happening through the app. So it will tell you the same information that you're going to get audibly through the button, whether that's a verbal message that tells you that the walk sign is on, or whether that's the verbal audible countdown message. All of that can come through the PED app. It's a very nice feature, and I've gotten a lot of good feedback on that as I have been showing it over the last few weeks. So in addition to what we're doing with the INS button, we're kind of excited about what the future holds for our technology. I'm sure many of you are aware of this concept or idea of connected vehicles. We have a lot of people talking about what the future is going to look like in terms of connecting vehicles, connecting pedestrians to vehicles, and vehicles to pedestrians. How do we make our streets safer for our citizens? And so with the new Bluetooth technology, being able to connect multiple different things and having that extended distance, we see the capability in the future for technology of connecting pedestrians to cars. Maybe it's bike detection, or maybe it's vehicle detection. There's so many different things that come into play now with this new Bluetooth technology. So if you have our existing IN product and you were to stick up the new INS product side by side, what you would see is the new INS is slightly longer and slightly wider. But if you were just looking at them with the naked eye, if you were driving past an intersection, you wouldn't really be able to notice the difference. It's got the same design, the same appearance. We kept all of that intact. Where the real size change comes from is whenever we made the shift from the older Bluetooth technology to the newer Bluetooth technology, we realized very quickly that we didn't have enough space for this larger size component to fit inside the button. So we had to adjust for that. And making that adjustment and adding the new Bluetooth, we found that we had some extra space, and that has come into play with being able to add new technology to help people not have to touch a button in order to get a peg call. So that's really exciting news that we'll share towards the end of our presentation. So in the 2-wire system or the 3-wire system, as we said, one single button. And if you were utilizing the 3-wire, you basically are going to terminate the wires coming off of that device that mounts up into the PED head with 3 wires. Those 3 wires will pull down to the button and terminate on the little green terminal that you can see here on the PowerPoint. That's going to be your power, your ground, and your data. And the data being whether you're in a walk or a don't walk situation. And then in addition to that, if you're not running a complete pre-timed system and you still need to get button calls back to the cabinet, then you utilize your same 2 button wires that were connected to your previous buttons and send those back to the traffic cabinet, and that will provide your actuation. So this is a really cool application, and again, these are the kind of things that we can do now with the new Bluetooth 5. So imagine, if you will, that you want to install some APS in an intersection. And with the 2-wire application, let's go back to this slide. With a 2-wire application, if you have a ICCU that's in the cabinet, then you can utilize the same 2 wires in your intersection that were currently providing your actuations from a standard push button, and you can hook those into your button back to your ICCU, and you will now have a system that monitors the walk and the don't walk. You don't have to mount the additional device in the PED head, and you do not have to pull the additional cable from the PED head down to the button. In my mind, this is a better system because there's fewer points of failure. But there are different applications that people have, and so one of those may be this. So let's say that you're installing your system and you're able to utilize a 2-wire system everywhere except for one corner. So if you see buttons 6 and 7 in the upper left-hand corner of this intersection drawing, you'll see that those buttons we're saying are on a 3-wire PED system, and that there are no button call wires to actuate back to the traffic cabinet available. Maybe they were in a conduit that got, crimped, and those wires are no longer working. And you don't want to have to bore underneath the roadway just to add a pipe to add 2 wires. So how do we accommodate this? You can go ahead and install those buttons as a 3-wire application, and then utilizing Bluetooth, you can connect them to the corresponding button across the street and be able to place the call that way. So if I walk up at this intersection to button number 7 and I press that button, even though there are no actuation wires there, I can get the call across the street to button number 8, which will then place that call to the controller, making that request to be able to cross the street safely. So that's how that works. It's a really cool new feature of the Bluetooth 5 and the INS buttons. And we're already finding, I was in a couple of southern states this week, and they had an application for that right away, and excited to see how that's going to work out for them. In addition to that, if you were utilizing 3-wire systems, the Bluetooth can also be used to make sure that the button on one side of the street is synced up with the other button on the other side of the street, so that whenever the ped walk comes on, those messages are being delivered simultaneously on each side of the street. There's no delay, there's no ping pong or any of those types of things going on that might confuse a visually impaired person about where they're supposed to cross. So the system now is available with software that will run on an Android phone, it will run on an iOS phone or an iPad or an iPad Touch, or whatever technology you choose to use. I know people have their preferences. I'm kind of partial to the iPhone myself. It's easy for an older guy to know how to use. But then we also have available laptop software, Windows software that you can use, and there's a little Bluetooth dongle that goes along with that. So any of these methods you can use to program the button with our field service app. And the field service app just makes it really simple to connect with a button. You can, if you're in a 3-wire button, you can connect over Bluetooth to each button. If you're using a 2-wire system, the 2-wire has the capability of also turning on Wi-Fi temporarily, so that you can sit at one location and have access to all the buttons in the intersection. You can program them all at the same time or separately. It just makes installation and checking up on the health and everything very simple to do that from one location. You may get away with being able to do that with the Bluetooth as well. As I mentioned, the Bluetooth 5 has a much longer range, and so it's very possible that you can see your buttons all across the intersection off of Bluetooth while you're there and doing your programming. This just makes it faster for doing programming and installation, and it also assists with doing upgrades even faster. So as I mentioned, with the new Bluetooth 5, it's just quick, but you could upgrade all your buttons at one single time with the app while you're at an intersection, instead of having to go from button to button to button. Those of you who are familiar with our older eNavigator system and the little eConfigurator, or having to carry a laptop around and plug into each one of those, I think you will appreciate this new system and how it works with our apps. So we have some other really kind of cool things that we have implemented now with the INS, and we certainly don't want you to forget about those. So let's chat about those for just a minute. So in the older types of systems, if you were familiar with the eNav, you would have to make a request, a special request for a voice message to be added to a button, and there were so many steps, and it was very involved, and we got a lot of good feedback from our customers about that. And so what we've been able to do now is take all of those voice messages. When you make a request for a special voice message, we will send you that voice message once it's completed in an email, so you'll have a hard copy file. But in addition to that, we're also going to store that on our website and an audio library. So let's say that you go out to a location and somebody hit a button, and now you've got to go put a new button at that particular location. And you go out there and you realize that you don't have the email any longer that had that file in it. Now what do? Well, with your smartphone or an iPad or your computer, if you can connect to the internet, you can get that voice message that's stored on our website, download that to your device, and then put that right to the button. It's really quick, it's easy, just so much faster and simpler than the older style system. Also, you may find that there are street names that have already been recorded and are in the system. You know, it could be that it's from a different city, but as long as the street name is the same, you know, First Avenue, 6th Avenue, MLK, whatever those names are, they may already be pre-recorded, and you can get quick and easy access to them, and you don't have to worry about even then making a request for a new message to be recorded. And then in addition to that, you may have a situation where you go out to a button, and for whatever reason, that button is not operating correctly. You feel the need to replace that button, and now you're a little concerned about, you know, how am I going to get this new, or get the audio messages into it? Well, it's really quick and simple to do. You just take your app and you extract the files that are in that button and put them onto your phone. Change out the button, and now you can download those audio files that were in the existing button straight to the new button. No going to the website and getting any other buttons or anything. Makes it very quick and painless. So those are the new features in terms of how to program a button from a perspective of the audio files and those sort of things. In addition, you can also save the configuration of a particular button. So you'll have all these files with the names of the button, you know, it's button X at location Y, and you can go to that site, grab that file, and instantly write that to the button, and now you'll have the proper configuration set up already in the button. You don't have to sit there and program everything all over again. Again, trying to find ways to make this quick and easy for you guys to do your job. That's the goal. So that makes it nice. And then one of the features that I really like, going back to the Bluetooth, again, if you ever had to configure the older style buttons, you had this little navigator configurator thing, and you had to align the LED infrared reader just right. And if you started doing your programming and you twitched a little bit, you may have to turn around and start all over again. So it was great technology at the time. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but we all know, if we've had any experience with it, that it could be a little bit cantankerous. So with the new system and the Bluetooth technology, I can stand back from the button. I can listen to the volumes as I change them to make sure that I get it to the appropriate sound. As an example, you know, we tell people that the MUTCD says that locate tone needs to be heard from anywhere from about 6 to 12 feet away. I prefer telling people 6 because if they can find it from 6 feet away easily enough, and they can, then that's just further distance away that someone doesn't have to listen to that locate tone. And if you have much experience with this type of technology, you'll know that there will be that 1 or 2 citizens that are going to call and say, hey, can you do something about the sound? So right off the bat, we want to set that locate tone as low as it'll possibly go in order to ensure that we're not alienating the rest of our citizens in the neighborhood. So 6 feet away is plenty. So you can drop back 6 feet away and keep turning it down, turning it down, turning it down, turning it down. And then you'll know when you'll know at that point that you've got it configured correctly. You write that to the button, save that file so that if you ever have to go back and download it again, you'll have it already set and ready to go. Just makes installation a lot simpler, faster, and we can get those volumes exactly where they need to be. Now, if for some reason you get those settings exactly where they're supposed to be, but you're still getting some pushback from citizens in the area in terms of it's just too loud, it's bothering me, we have a new feature that we call quiet time. And what quiet time does is it takes, so in our buttons, we have 2 different ambient measurements. We're measuring the ambient noise and adjusting our locate tone. and we're listening to the ambient noise, and we are managing all the other volumes of all the other messages that are played. So we can fine tune that locate tone and still not affect the ambient for the rest of the messages that probably need to be louder in order for people to hear them clearly. So even with that, there may be a time where someone comes and says to you, hey, is there anything you can do to help us reduce this noise a little bit? Enter quiet time. So the quiet time feature is in the app. You go to it, and it's as simple as what you see here on your screen. You hit the little button to enable the quiet time. You say what time you want it to start and what time you want it to end, and then how much you want to reduce your overall volume by. So, and it's going to do it across the board for your locate, for your walk, for your special messages, all of those kinds of things. It's going to adjust all of those based upon the percentage that you enter in here where it says volume reduction. It's a really quick and easy thing to use. We do have the ability of doing other time of day, a day of the week type of programming. That can get a little difficult for some people. And so we just wanted to make this as easy as possible and give you the new quiet time feature. Hope that's exciting. So we talked about the 2-wire versus 3-wire system. Our 2-wire system, as I mentioned, comes in 2 different varieties, either a shelf mount version or the card rack version that's primarily for 300 series cabinets. It goes in, plugs into the rack. There's some special connectors that connect in the back, and then that ties into 170 and 2070 controllers. So if those are the types of cabinets and controllers you're maintaining and utilizing, that would be what you would want to install in your cabinet for a 2-wire operation. For everyone else, especially in the NEMA world where you're utilizing NEMA TS2 and you're utilizing the SDLC version, that just makes installation so much simpler because you can connect your SDLC, get all the information that the device needs to know in terms of what interval it's in and what PEG calls are coming in and that sort of thing, and makes its adjustments. So both of these units, we can support up to 16 different buttons in an intersection. So if you had your typical 8 buttons in an intersection, but then you also had, you had to put buttons in the middle of the roadway because it's a really wide roadway, and maybe the timings for the walk that you have there, you get people from one side of the street into the middle, and then from the middle to the other side of the street, and you do that in 2 different cycles, whatever that may be, then this would be where you would have application for additional buttons. But we can support up to 16 of those. And we can also monitor what's going on in the intersection. So if a button had an issue for some reason, we can capture that in our 2-wire unit. And then if you've got communications in your cabinet, we can hook that up so that you can do SNMP queries and traps and get that information back to a central so that someone is notified and you're able to then go and respond a lot quicker to make sure that that button gets replaced or that CCU gets replaced or whatever the problem happens to be. You can respond much faster. So if you as I mentioned at the very beginning, our ICCU S and S2 and our buttons are INS buttons versus IN buttons. These are all backwards compatible. So if you had a S in your cabinet and it failed and all you had on your shelf was an S2, you could take the S2 out, put it in the cabinet, even with the older style buttons, and everything will function perfectly. With the new ICCU S2, one of the things that we did do is add even beefier transient protection to it. I know lightning is a problem all over the place, but we're also very familiar with lightning in Florida and Texas. And if you've ever been down there in the middle of a thunderstorm, you'll know what I'm saying. Even central Georgia. So I don't know, I can't see you guys. I don't know the age that you are, but if you remember the first Gulf War, General Stormin Norman Schwarzkopf once said when he's talking about the Scud missiles that were being lobbed from Iraq into Israel, He said, I'm more afraid of standing out in a field in central Georgia during a lightning storm than I am of those things. And if you've ever experienced a lightning storm down in central or south Georgia or Florida for that matter, you'll totally understand what I'm saying. Lightning is a big deal down here. And so we want to make sure that our products are up to par and able to handle that. And so we've increased our transit protection in the CCU. So with this device, we have several different cables. Now, let me go back to this slide just so you can see this. On the older ICCU, we had a 50-pin harness that you had to connect. And you had to terminate those wires in the cabinet. And look, we had a lot of comments that came from our users about that. And so we have now modified it so that you have this version where you have an A, a B, a C, and a D connector, as well as the SDLC and what we call our PLC power. So depending upon what your configuration is, you'll get all or some of these cables with your package whenever you order the 2-wire. And so this is what that looks like. If you have a standard NEMA TS1 cabinet, you're going to get the cable for the button PLC. That's actually what provides power out to the buttons in the intersection. So just that one connector can power up to 16 buttons. And then you're also going to have your cable A, and that's going to wire to your load switch ped interval outputs so that we can monitor and know whether you're in a walk or don't walk situation and provide the appropriate message for the button whenever that happens. And then you also have a C cable, and that's wiring to your ped input. So those are your button wires coming back from the field that are going to place the call to the traffic controller requesting that walk indication. Then we have what we call a TS2 split configuration, and or you may hear us refer to this as a hybrid installation. And what this does is it utilizes the SDLC, but there's not a true BIU in the cabinet. There's just a controller with SDLC functionality. And so for that, we can hook the SDLC cable up to the controller and we can get the ped interval timing for that. In addition, you have your 2-wire, pardon me, you have your 2-wire PLC cable that wires to the interconnect board and provides power to your buttons. And then you have the C cable wiring to the ped inputs, because there's no way to get those ped inputs into the controller if there's no BIU. So that's a hybrid installation. And then in a full TS2 BIU installation, both your ped interval and your ped input wires are coming back through the SDLC. And then we have one cable there that's going out and providing the power to the to your wires. And then not shown in this picture, there's also one single wire that's going to plug into that C connector that you'll need to terminate in the cabinet. And that's the logic ground or logic common to ensure that you've got proper protection of your buttons and of your CCU and the grounding system of the cabinet. So that would be all that would be required there. Obviously, an SDLC full BIU installation, so much simpler to use. You will have to, let me go back to this. So if you're familiar with any of the programming, depending upon the controller manufacturer that you're using, some of them are easier to program, some of them a little bit more difficult, but I'm sure once you cut your teeth on them, you'll know what you're doing. And what you're going to do in this situation is you'll have to go in and you'll have to take the detector inputs and you'll have to turn those into ped inputs. So depending upon the terminology of your traffic controller, some people refer to that as remapping your inputs. Again, if you know what you're doing, pretty easy to do, and the controller manufacturers can easily assist you with that. So in the 3-wire system, you have a ped head control unit, and this mounts inside of each pedestrian signal head It's going to terminate to your walk input, your don't walk input, of course, your neutral and your earth ground. And then it's going to convert all of that over to 24 volt DC. You'll have to take a special cable, or it's just a Belden cable, and we can provide you the Belden part number for that. You can buy that cable yourself, or we also sell it in lengths of 12 foot, 25 foot, and 50 foot. That makes it available for you, and you're good to go. So you would wire that over there on the right-hand side, and that provides the 24 volts down to the button, and you'd have to do that for each PED head that you're using the 3-wire PED head system in. Also, the new IPHCU3S is completely backwards compatible with the IN buttons. So if you ever have to replace one of the older PED head control units with the newer one, it's all compatible. You don't have to worry about that. And then on our 3-wire version, just like in our 2-wire version, we have beefed up the transient protection in this thing that is just off the charts good. So hopefully it'll take care of any lightning or surge issues that you might experience in your community. So in the 3-wire system, as I said, on the right hand there, you'll see the image of where you would mount that inside of your pedestrian head. There'll be a little mounting bracket that will come with that. You'll attach that to the plate inside, and then tie your wires from your LED head to it, and then run that other cable down to the pedestrian head. And as I mentioned before, those cables we can provide to you in 12 foot, 25 foot, or 50 foot options, and that'll all come together with your buttons and everything. So it just makes installation faster and easier. Or you can buy, rolls of Belden cable that would probably be a lot less expensive, and just cut them to length and make your terminations. There's no special connectors or anything there. You just want to tie it to the terminal, and then tie it to the PED head control unit there in your PED head. One other point as well, if you're going from our EN buttons over into INS buttons, you'll notice that I'm referring to these as 3-wire buttons and not 4-wire buttons. That is because we did make the shift away from 4 wires to 3. Again, just trying to make this as easy to install as possible and less points of failure in the cabinet. So I don't know if you guys are using any RRFBs. I'm sure you are, because I know TAPCO loves to promote their RRFBs, and they make a quality one. So hopefully you guys are purchasing those and making your mid-block crossing safer. If you've seen all the statistics that is coming from FHWA now, it's pretty remarkable the amount of pedestrian accidents that are reduced by putting these things in. So really cool safety system that's available to you from TAPCO. We support TAPCO with those installations through either our Bulldog buttons, or now we can also provide you the INX. And what the INX button does is, it, like our typical APS, it has a verbal component. And so whenever you walk up and press the button, that button then will give you the message that the yellow lights are flashing. It'll play that 2 times. And that's something that's been established by the MUTCD. Likewise, the MUTCD said they do not want any of these buttons on RRFBs to have a vibral tactile operation or the percussive sound. So we had to eliminate those, but they can still get a message that tells them that the walk light is on. In addition, this button also works with our PED app. And so we haven't really talked about the PED app yet, but we will in just a moment. But what the PED app allows you to do is to remotely place a call into the cabinet, and now that works with our current INS, APS, as well as our INX buttons for mid-block crossings. So we talked a little bit in the beginning about what's in the future for pedestrians and intersections. What do we see happening? And these are really exciting times to make pedestrians safer, bicyclists safer, people driving their cars safer. So all this new connected vehicle stuff is coming, and we at Pollara are excited about the position that we have in the industry right now with this new INS button and being able to accommodate some of that communication through our new Bluetooth 5 types of comms. So let's talk about Pet App. So the Pet App really it was derived out of some of the MUTCD standards that have been established, as well as the needs of the visually impaired. So I'm sure you guys, I don't need to really talk to you too much about who the visually impaired community is. Whenever I first got introduced to Pollara back in the 90s, I was under the impression that what we were trying to accommodate were blind people. And that's not true. Yes, we want to help them, but there are so many more people out there with various different levels of visual impairedness that we need to also attempt to help. And so, whether it's glaucoma or any of the other numbers of diseases that affect your eyesight, if you cannot see the pedestrian signal that's across the way, then how can you safely manage to cross the street? And so that's where the Pet App comes in. The Pet App, it comes in from there, and it also comes in from the fact that the MUTCD has set certain criteria for how APS buttons can be installed and operated. A few of those examples are, let's say that you're installing your buttons and they're going to be less than 10 feet apart. The MUTCD says if that happens, then you need to use the verbal messages, the special voice messages that tell you when you can cross the street, or that the walk sign is on, if the walk sign is off, or those sorts of things. If it's greater than 10 feet, then they want you to use the rapid percussive sound. And that's the sound that sounds like a machine gun going off. And so that's the standard that they have set aside. Now, we sell thousands of these buttons and have sold thousands of these buttons in the city of New York. And in New York, while you have one DOT that's in charge of the entire city, you also have these different boroughs. And the boroughs can all determine that they're going to follow one set of criteria, where a different borough is going to follow different criteria. So just imagine, if you will, if you're a visually impaired person and you're crossing those jurisdictions from one borough to the next, and the first borough says, you know what, we're going to follow the letter of the law on the MUTCD. And so our buttons are greater than 10 feet apart. And so we're going to have this rapid percussive sound that is being generated out of our audible buttons to help guide people across the street. And at the next borough, they say, no, we don't like that. So we're going to do verbal messages, audible messages all the time. That's what we're going to do. So now you can see that there's confusion with the person who's crossing jurisdictions. What do these two different things mean? How do I know where I'm at? What's going on? And so they were just telling us that this is a real problem for them. And so we came up with the Pet App. And what the Pet App allows them to do, as you can see there on the top right, the first thing it's going to do is announce to them what intersection they're approaching. So when they get to the intersection, they'll know exactly where they're at on their journey. And then you see the blue messages. Those are the actual street name signs. So depending upon, you may have 8 buttons there. And those then will pop up, and they're able to slide their finger across, and the cursor will move down, and then it will tell them audibly what button that they're about to make that request for. Once they select a button by double tapping, it will place the call to that particular button where they want to cross, and then the locate sound of that button will increase so that they're able to get closer to that button and go, this is the one, the direction that I want to cross. They can feel the raised arrow, and once it starts vibrating, they'll know that the walk sign is on. Or if they're using their app and they don't want to touch the button, they can just stand there and wait and listen. And as soon as that walk sign comes on, the phone will speak to them and say, walk sign is on, whatever message that you've got programmed in the system, and it will also vibrate for them in their hands so that they know, hey, something has just changed, and they can begin their journey across the street. Likewise, whenever it gets to the countdown period, the audible countdown, it'll provide them that information if you've configured it for that, and it will also give them the let them know when the don't walk has come on. And then it goes back to searching for intersection names, and as they continue on their journey block to block, it'll provide that information for them, and they can safely cross the street. The beauty of this is no matter whether you've got a button that you've programmed in the street to provide, maybe you don't want audible countdowns, maybe you want to use the rapid percussive sound, that's fine. But what the visually impaired person is looking for are those other two features. He can now get that, or she can now get that by utilizing the app. So they'll know at any point in time what that button is doing, even if we traffic engineers have programmed the button to do something that's different. So there's two different ways for it to work, and the PET app just accommodates those users and helps. So that's the idea behind it. The PET app was actually in the works before this whole COVID thing hit. So, you know, right away we had a PET app, and we had the ability to do touchless button presses, if you will. So utilizing the app, you could walk up to an intersection, select the crossing that you wanted. It would automatically place the call through that Bluetooth technology we've been talking about. And now you can get a walk signal to cross the road in the direction that you want to go. Nice, safe, and simple. But then in addition to that, we started getting a lot of requests from agencies about, is there a way to have a button that provides the APS functionality, but that I don't have to press. And so, you know, COVID-19, it's impacted our lives in so many different ways, including simple things like crossing the street. And so one of the things that happened right away is there were some places where traffic engineers didn't want, I don't know if it was a liability or whatever from health concerns. And so they went out and they put their intersections into PED recall, and they put up signs, literally, I mean, various different types of signs, kind of like the one you can see there in the image there that says, don't push the button, you know, due to COVID-19, we don't want you pressing the button, and we're just going to cycle the intersection in that way. Well, that's great for pedestrians who don't want to touch the button, but what does that do to the rest of your traffic? It can have a pretty negative impact on it. So how do we solve this problem? Well, people started asking for this touchless technology, and at Polera, we came up with what we feel is the perfect solution. So our new iDetect button will detect whenever you wave your hand at the button, as long as you're within 1 to 4 inches away, and it will automatically place the pedestrian call for you. So you don't have to touch it. What that does is that helps traffic engineers take their systems now off of PED recall. And so you can start running your intersections the way that you've always run them, and know that pedestrians can still get across the street safely with a walk signal without ever having to touch the button and potentially have their health compromised because of that. In addition, our system is pretty vandal resistant. So you don't see on our button anywhere a place where you could potentially vandalize it to prevent that operation from happening. And so it's inconspicuous, it's out of the way, no one will know about it, except you'll have to have some form of sign that tells people, hey, push or wave it button in order to get the walk signal. We can talk about what those are going to look like at a later date, but there is discussion right now about what is the proper sign to put on these buttons in order to let people know that they don't have to physically press the button. So I would like to, and I'm going to try and do this in the system. Hopefully we can make this work. Hannah, are you still with us?
Have you been seeing Have you been seeing the signs? COVID-19 has impacted many parts of our lives, including crossing the streets. To help pedestrians avoid having to touch or push pedestrian buttons, many traffic agencies are putting up signs and putting their pedestrian push buttons into recall. However, this practice poses other issues and challenges for traffic flow systems. People are asking for touchless push buttons to address COVID-19 and protection for the future. What about those with other challenges, such as visually impaired pedestrians? Is there a solution that works for both? Leave it to Polera, the leader in accessible pedestrian signals, APS, touchless push buttons to address COVID-19 and protection for the future. What about those with other challenges, such as visually impaired pedestrians? Is there a solution that works for both? Leave it to Polera, the leader in accessible pedestrian signals, APS, to provide a strong solution that considers the needs of all pedestrians. You can't touch this. Literally, let Polera's INS APS with eye detect sense your waving movement within 2 to 6 inches of the arrow button and place the pedestrian call for you. Traffic agencies can relax and run their regular signal timing systems and not feel compromised with public health and safety concerns. For those who like to touch and vandalize, Polera's eye detect has an inconspicuous design helping deter vandalism of signal operations. Ask for Polera INS APS with eye detect today. For your local distributors, see polera.com.
Appreciate that help. So that concludes our presentation on what's new with Polera and the new INS and the new iDetect. Would love to get your feedback about this, so we have time for some questions.
So my name is Aaron Gilbo. I know majority of you, if we haven't spoke through the years, that's who I am. I've been with TAPCO for 15 years now. Here in August is my my born-on date, if you will. So we'll get started here, go through our solutions offerings. I have some videos in here as well. And if you have any questions, again, as always here, go ahead and pop into the chat and we'll address them to the group as we move along. So just a short, quick introduction here. Myself, of course. So I've been, again, with TAPCO for 15 years. I've been through a few different location changes from Elm Grove to now Brown Deer. And we'll do a little bit more of TAPCO introduction as well. We'll talk about some of our core technologies and the various systems that we apply our technology to, from pedestrian crosswalks, school zones, dynamic curves, our high water, our overheight, and our wrong way systems as well. So just a little bit more on TAPCO. So we have these 4 core strengths that is something first and foremost on each of the employees' minds every day. Our service, our expertise, our innovation, and our quality. We'll talk a little bit about each one of these as well. So the innovation is one thing that we're really proud of, and as a common theme as we move through the different projects here, the products, is that we really take this to heart. We always tell our customers that, you know, if there's an issue, let's talk about it. We may not have a system developed for it, but we certainly want to work through the issues, make your jobs, your lives, your you know, everything that you guys have going on a little bit easier each and every day, and design a system that suits your need. It might not necessarily work for someone down in the south, but certainly here in the north, we have our own challenges, and it might be something that we can apply here. If you don't know, TAPCO stands for Traffic and Parking Control Company. We've been around since 1956, and we manufacture, which I'll focus on here in my presentation. But as you've seen throughout the others today, we sell and service other products, distribute, and do some service as well. So one of the things that we've really tried to take off here in the last year or two is focus on our service. So we have a ton of experience. We've been in the traffic industry for a really long time, and we have sales folks throughout the country as well. So we really take a geography-based approach, and a lot of relationships that we have throughout the country, we can kind of leverage those for different products and different projects specifically. So it's really neat, something that we can kind of go from soup to nuts, if you will. Start the process on the design end, work through the design phase, and work through the order, and then certainly the service of those products as well at the back end of things too, to make sure that your investment is getting the most out of it. And another great thing here too is our expertise. We've got a lot of engineers, if you've ever worked with TAPCO, that have had years and years of experience, and we sit on many boards from ATSA to IMSA and ITE, just to name a few. So we're subject matter experts, and that engineer to order capability also is something that we really take pride in. And one thing that, again, all of us employees kind of focus on is our quality. It's something that's really taken the driver's seat for us here in the past 4 or 5 years with the expansion of our product line and new products. We really wanted to slow down and take a breath and focus on our quality. It's not necessarily about getting everything out the door, in a quick fashion. We want to get it done right. In some of the processes that we've started to work around, if you're familiar with some of them, it's BES and Kanban, to name a few. And we certainly take pride in some of the prime metrics that we have as employees as well, from our safety, our lead time, our on-time delivery, and of course that quality again comes in with our returns and warranties. So we use the same roads you folks do, and we want to make sure that we have a responsibility to get the product right the first time out to us, and make our families, our coworkers, and our lives a little bit safer by implementing some of these products. In our innovation, the last few years, we've been really pushing some of the new products, and you'll see some of those here today in the presentation, from overheight detection, from high water warning systems, and specifically our wrong way projects that we've been working throughout the country, and have really just kind of stepped into the forefront of the transportation industry as we move forward here. And more currently, been working on a lot of intelligent transportation systems too, from roadside units and smart vehicles, to certainly kind of lead the industry in those products as well. All right, so we've really kind of tried to encompass all the products out there. You'll see here on the right that we have our blinker sign, our old standby, the beacon, and then certainly the RFB that's kind of taken the industry by storm over the last 4 or 5 years. So we really had to make sure we had a suite of products that not just focused on 1 or 2 items, but be able to fit any need that traffic engineers might face, whether they have a passion for the beacon that's tried, true, and tested, or if it's a little bit newer technology, our blinker sign, to again the much newer product here with the RFB. So hopefully all of you listening know what a blinker sign is from TAPCO, but this just kind of runs down some of the components and the specifics for our type of system, and why we believe it is one of the premier on the marketplace. So we use 3M traffic material. We use diamond grade cubed, make sure that our signs are the brightest. We use a standard gauge of 080, but we certainly have other options available, and we'll talk a little bit about it as we get into some of our ruggedized systems, where we can kind of beef those systems up in some of our northern climates where snow is impactful, and we want to make sure that we have something more robust and durable. And here is our beacon. If you see on the right here is an application of a system that's installed here in the city of Milwaukee, here in Wisconsin. Some of you may have seen this. But we use our 12-inch amber beacons primarily. We also have red, of course, for those rural applications. And we have a handful of different options, from the cut visors to the tunnel visors, different colors, and makes and models as well. So we can set these up again, as we do with our blinker signs, from time clocks to pedestrian crossings and any other host of other products. Here's the RFB. You can kind of see in this photo here, and I think we'll talk a little bit more in a future slide, but we have a universal mounting bracket. So whatever post mount you have, it doesn't need to be specific, whether it's a round post, a square post, large 4x6 wood posts. All of those can be handled with a simple standard universal bracket. So that makes our product a little bit more unique. And of course, on the sides of those, if you can envision these pedestrian crossings, you never have crossed them before. They sit 7 feet up on a pole, so sometimes it's hard for a pedestrian pushing the button right underneath the assembly to see if the system's actually functioning, flashing, and working. So these sidebar indicators, you can look across the street and see those side fires to the pedestrian, so they know that the system is functioning and in action. So an enhancement or another product that we also do with a lot of our pedestrian crossing systems is our IRWL, our in-road warning lights. This is just an added feature here for a number of applications, from pedestrians to industrial applications where we want to direct truck bays and things of that nature. So these are all snow plowable, self-cleaning lenses. These can be single or double-sided. These come all pre-cut from a wiring standpoint. So simply saw cut, you cut the holes for the cans, drop everything in there, wired into the control cabinet here off to the side of the road, and away you go. So it's a much cleaner product than it has been in the past, when we've made some future enhancements here to this type of product as well. And we'll get a little bit more in detail, but from a 10,000 foot overview, here's some of the activation capabilities we have. A new product that we just took on about a year or so ago is our thermal detection from FLIR. It's a great product. The false calls are mitigated to almost none. We have simple basic applications for activation from push buttons. You heard Chris talk a little bit about some of the touchless products in the INX and the INS. So all those products are available for our types of systems as well. So a wireless bollard as well, as you'll see there in the middle. Those come with infrared rays. So once that's broken in a certain direction, so it doesn't fire if somebody is crossing the street in the wrong direction, but only it reads that A/B side first to trigger the system as well. So there's another touchless application possibility as well. Then we do some weather systems where we're putting in, fiber optics, temperature sensors, float sensors for some of our high water systems. So time clocks obviously are something that we certainly do a lot around the school time. So there's a lot of different options, and there's really no limit on them. A few years ago, short story, we had worked with a hospital up north of Wisconsin, and they have a helipad where the road goes by on all four sides, and they wanted something that the helicopter pilots would be able to trigger from about 5,000 foot height, would alert motorists that are in the area that there's a helicopter coming in for landing. So just to give you an idea and think outside the box. And again, talk to us, talk to me. We have our engineers that work and focus on a lot of these applications. So there's really nothing that we're not able to accomplish. So kind of the brain behind all of what we do is our blinker beam wireless communication. So we've gone through some upgrades, and we've got a nice new LCD backlit display. We have a range of up to 900 feet, clear line of sight. And if it's a little bit farther than that, or with some obstructions, whether it's a hill or some tree coverage, we can add some antennas for additional distance, whether it's Omnis or Yagi antennas as well. I've also had the question periodically, well, what if we have other radio styles in the area? Is that going to cause some communication interruption? And the answer is no. So we have a frequency hopping spread spectrum radio. So it will find the channel that will be open, and we'll use that communication, and it's almost instantaneous. So again, if you've ever used an RFB crossing or a blinker sign crossing, you've seen these blinker beams in action, and they'll sync in the flashing patterns for each side. So you don't have to worry about those being out of sync for a motorist or for a pedestrian as well. So one thing that makes us really unique is just the amount of power options that we have available. If you look at Wisconsin and then you look at Arizona, we have two different types of climates. What might work in Wisconsin might not necessarily be applicable in Arizona. It might be overkill, and vice versa. So we really take the approach that everyone's unique and it's their own specific application. We take into account solar site survey kits if that's needed, but anywhere from 13 watt solar panels up to 85 watt solar panels. And we've also done some larger banks and some wrong way settings where there's additional equipment that needs to be driven, and we'll be able to make some solar panel packages to accommodate that as well. Obviously 120 volt is an option as well. And you see there on the far right, the streetlight power. We've also done a lot of 240 as well. So that battery is being charged up at night from that light being on with its photocell, and then runs off the battery during the day once it's activated too. And here's just a little slide, just kind of reiterating what I was talking about in terms of the sun coverage there in the southwest part of the country. Obviously, you got a lot more sunlight than we do here in Wisconsin. Longer days. You know, here in Wisconsin, we try and power our systems to be able not only work in the summertime when it's easy to do, but also when our days are short. And you know, if you folks are all here from Wisconsin, of course, we do get some periods of a week to 2 weeks where that sunshine is not a commodity, and so we want to make sure that in the dark of the winter time with short days again and no sunlight, that our systems are actively working and keeping our kids from a school zone setting and our pedestrians safe as we move about. Again, here's just another standard application that we have. I think this is in the city of Milwaukee as well. So this would be a typical blinker sign setup. You can see the solar panel on top. That looks to me to be about a 55-watt panel. You can kind of see the cabinet down there on the pole, so that would house the wireless radio, terminal blocks for the push button and the light bars, or the blinker signs to come on down to. And again, that's all included there in that style of system. So as you can see, this would be a solar application with that blinker beam, and there's no conduit, there's no power that needs to be drawn underneath the roadway or across the road. It's simply done wirelessly. Just talking a little bit more on those pedestrian crosswalk systems. So you can see here in the pictures, this is one of our newer products, and we'll talk a little bit more about it as well, but you can see it's a 20-watt top of pole. On that setup, you'll notice that there is no cabinet. So within that 20-watt solar panel on the top of that square post is our terminal block, is our battery, and our wireless radio. So it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing and a nice little clean look. And that package can certainly be applied to, you see there, a blinker sign, a beacon setup, or even an RFB. So I'm sure most of you are aware, but just a quick recap here on some of the FHW compliance here. Probably about, I believe it's around 2 years ago, the interim approval was rescinded and then came back out with a few caveats. So they changed the flash pattern to a WW plus S, which is just simply the wig wag plus simultaneous. And the light bars also had to be dimmable. So in a bright sunny day, you actually want the light bars to flash at a brighter intensity, so it adds that contrast. Whereas at nighttime, we can actually dim down those light bars so that's not blinding to a motorist. So this is also another way that we're able to save a little bit of battery power and juice and add to our autonomy as well. The lenses are 3x7s, and again, I touched on it earlier, but the universal bracket for the light bars and control cabinet as well are also another nice feature. So here's that thermal detection we talk about, and it uses heat to determine pedestrians within that crosswalk. So it eliminates the worry about shadows, sun glare, and any darkness, and it also picks up the directionality of a pedestrian as well. So we've used some others in the past, and they work great, but they would have a tendency to kind of overcorrect and would give off some false calls when not necessarily a pedestrian was in the crosswalk, but maybe it's somebody walking on a cross street that isn't actually using the pedestrian. So with the FLIR, you can draw your zones and eliminate some of those false detections. And this is a new product too for us. It's a great product. So, we always talk about first and foremost our pedestrian crossing systems, and we want to alert the motorist to somebody within that crosswalk. So a lot of times where we're putting these systems, there's no street light. And one thing that we've come up with here is our Safe Walk product. And so once the system is activated, the motorist is getting the light bar activations, but you're also illuminating the crosswalk itself. So it's an added feature here to be able to see a motorist or to see a pedestrian from a motorist standpoint coming through that crosswalk. These are ideal for 2-lane crosswalks. They have a photo cell as well. So during the daytime, they do not activate, only when it's in dark nighttime conditions. One thing to be aware of is making sure that when we place these, that there's no overhead street light, because sometimes those will interfere with that ambient light sensor on those as well. So I have a video here. Let me see if I can do this for you. So this is on our Safe Walk illuminator. So you can kind of see from that motorist standpoint that it certainly makes a big difference when you're looking at not just the light bars flashing, but also that illuminating of the crosswalk and the pedestrian within it makes a huge impact. So this is just another one of the features that we've added to our pedestrian crossing systems, and since it's come out, it's been a very popular product for us. We've actually had a lot of people come back and say, hey, how come this wasn't part of the proposal on a previous job that we've done? And certainly, again, a new product. We haven't had it out a long time, but we're seeing some really great data from it and some excitement around it. So we've also been able to retrofit. So if there's an existing system in the field, whether it's AC powered or solar powered, we've been able to accommodate that within the cabinet by simply just replacing a panel and allowing for that product to be included in that system. Hannah, do you want to play this one as well here? This is another pedestrian crossing video for us here.
Communities face common pedestrian safety issues, such as distracted driving, drunk driving, and limited visibility. While every crosswalk is different, designing the safest pedestrian crossing remains the objective. Communities face common pedestrian safety issues, such as distracted driving, drunk driving, and limited visibility. While every crosswalk is different, designing the safest pedestrian crossing remains the objective. For over 60 years, traffic professionals around the world have turned to TAPCO for pedestrian crosswalk solutions engineered to increase driver awareness. The systems are activated via push buttons or at scheduled times. Systems can also activate via infrared bollards or in user-defined zones with thermal detection. A wide range of LED-enhanced warning alerts grab the driver's attention and increase their yield rates to pedestrians. You can tap into your existing power source or use our flex power, solar panel, and cabinet configurations to enhance crosswalk safety wherever you need it. The SafeWalk Crosswalk Illuminator lights up poorly lit crossings for increased pedestrian visibility. The connected vehicle interface uses smart city infrastructure to give instant in-vehicle alerts.
Watch for pedestrians.
BlinkLink software allows for remote monitoring of the system and delivers real-time data to analyze activation trends. TAPCO's world-class team of traffic safety experts design and maintain these innovative solutions to help you solve
I know we just touched a little bit on the CVI component there at the end of the video, but we'll get a little bit more in depth on that as well. So moving on to school zone systems, one of the issues that we've seen throughout the years, and studies show that drivers don't always know when the school zones are active. So when you have these static signs, speed limit 25 when flashing, that's great, but it doesn't always tell the motorist exactly what's happening. And with the different high amount of distractions that we have nowadays, it's better to kind of grab that motorist's attention. So we use that with notifying drivers here, whether it's a slow down or simply beacons or flashing that the school zone is in actual effect. We can certainly set these activations with a time clock, and they're proven to reduce that school zone speed by quite a bit here. Actually, when we talk about 9 miles an hour, that's a huge difference. So here's just a little bit more specific information here on our time clock. You can see a picture of the calendar in the top. I know it's hard to make out the exact, but each controller had its own individual scheduling function. So you can see the solar powered battery power usage that's on there. You can also track some activations as well with the correct software. So it's a really neat product. We've seen a lot of it in school zones and time clocks. There's also other features here where we can add radar detection to it. So the school zone system stays static majority of the time until a vehicle is detected, or you can add a traditional driver feedback system in there as well. Sorry, Alan, I brushed over your comment there. Yes, so they all have that feature. And again, with that new IA-21 that came out about a year or two ago, anything prior to that had the capability, but wasn't required. So maybe your question is I know you guys have a few up there that we have done in the past. We can certainly change those out, but typically it's done with routine maintenance. So if there's a non-dimmable system that you guys have currently, it doesn't need to be changed immediately. But as you would say, have a knockdown, or again, routine maintenance is how they phrase it. We can certainly replace those as well. Hope that answers your question. All right. So moving on here to our 4G time clock controller. This is a nice one-for-one product swap. You can see the panel that is provided there, but that's simply plug and plays. So, and it provides a unique feature for us, which is our BlinkLink platform. It's an over-the-air system that allows you to track and manage your investments. We use these with RFBs, with blinker signs, with beacons, whatever the case may be. So this is a nice way to pull all of your products into one platform and allow one traffic engineer to monitor hundreds of products without having to be reactive and wait for one of your constituents to call and say there's something wrong with this issue or wrong with this product or this crossing. You can stay ahead of the curve and be proactive from that standpoint. So we use cell-based communication, so you can access this from any web-enabled device, and again, it can be a solar power or AC power. That doesn't matter one bit. And I know Joe talked a little bit about this in his adaptive product line presentation, but just wanted to show you a little bit more here on our driver feedbacks. So these are the different models we have. Again, as Joe mentioned, 11-inch all the way up to the 18-inch. We have standard static numbers, digitals, but we also have full matrix as well. So there's a light sensor that's built into these that adjusts the brightness. And again, there's an AC model, there's a battery model for those applications where you want to move these things around throughout the city, track and manage the data and see if there's actually a problem. A lot of times we'll have, folks call in to agencies or police departments and simply say, hey, we got a speeding problem. When in reality, it's perception, not reality. So that's one way, using a battery powered system to be able to track that data and give tangible feedback to the engineer, the police department, so they can allocate resources appropriately. All right, so we'll move into our dynamic curb warning system. If you folks notice this application here, this is the one on the Mitchell interchange. So there's two types of flash patterns that we typically see and use with our dynamic curb warning system. We have what we call the chase, where it actually guides and follows a motorist around a curve, as you see here, or the type of flashing that simply flashes in unison by using our blinker bling radio technology that will guide a motorist as well. So here's just some data. I'm not going to go through it and bore you, but you guys can read the slide here. But dynamic curves warning system is something that has been picking up here in the last few years. With a lot more of the crash data out there, you can see that some of these roadway departures in curve speeding can really be curved, and kind of taking up that driver error component as well by making sure the system triggers when a motorist is there. So the system can be a static system with no flashing, so it's not being too bright if there's houses or apartment complexes near, if it was in an urban setting, but more specifically we use these in rural locations. So when it's triggered, it's using a radar in the lead sign that basically activates and tells the system that, hey, there's a motorist here, we're going to actually begin flashing, and we'll guide that motorist through the curve, and we'll flash for a specific duration of time. So here's another application. There's one similar to this as well, I think, going on I-43 South going into Milwaukee, but we can certainly tie these into our adaptive product line as well, where we have some overhead message boards, dynamic message boards that will actually alert a motorist as well. So not only are you giving them the flashing LED blinker signs, but you're also giving them a little added coverage here as well with some messages. So as I mentioned, there's some customizable flash patterns, the sequential and then the simultaneous as well. You can do a combination of these as well with our controllers and the algorithms that we have. We have a lot of flexibility within those. And I mentioned the ruggedized. So on our normal, typical standard LED sign, we use like an 080 gauge aluminum. But here on a ruggedized, we go to a 0.100. And you can see the different layers and levels of this sign as well. We embed the LEDs actually in a high density polyethylene substrate. And then we also use some Z-bars on the backing that will just add some rigidity to it. I think we have a picture here in the next slide or two that kind of shows you what a standard blinker sign can look like when it's in close proximity to a roadway and snowplows are traveling 45 miles an hour throwing heavy wet snow into it. They just kind of fold up like a piece of paper. So we've come out with these types of ruggedized blinker signs in a lot of mountain passes out west. We use these up north in the Michigan and the UP and northern Wisconsin as well. So a couple images there to the right, you can kind of see what happens there when we just use a standard, or even in that bottom sign there, it's just a standard aluminum sign. So they can be pretty detrimental here when the weather gets pretty harsh up in these northern climates or in these coastal regions where there's a lot of rain and heavy weather. So doing a ruggedized sign certainly is an application to be considered. So we have, again, all of this technology can certainly be passed along to all of our product
Thanks
lines.
for letting us know, Stephanie, here.
So it's our job here as sales folks
try and
to make
look
sure
at
that
maybe we
you guys
can
have all
skip
the
these
information
videos
that
for
you
now
guys
and
need
if
to try and
folks
guide you
would
in the
like to
right
see some
direction.
additional
So,
ones, we can
a
send
good
those out to
application
you
here would be a blanker
individually
sign,
via
solar
email,
package.
too.
They're pretty small
Step
files,
up from a
and you can
static
find a lot of these on
signage.
YouTube as well.
Adding
it to adding Z-bar to it would be a better application to add some of that rigidity and help it to perform better.
All right,
here
so
with
moving
any
to our
wind
next
or
system
snow.
here is our high water
And then
system.
obviously the best, again,
so
we
you can
just
see
talked
this
about doing that
application,
ruggedized,
a lot of rural
where we're
places and
beefing that
also
thing up.
some
We're
very
adding
urban areas
extra layers to it,
we'll see
anti-vandal
shortly here with a couple of
and
slides.
it's just
from,
a nice product here that will keep your investment safe for a lot
it's not something
longer.
that happens all the time, but when we do have a rain event, it's really nice to have a product.
So
like
a couple
that.
other,
I know,
again, some of the
where I live
products that
here
we talked
south of
about
Madison,
before. Last week we had some really heavy
rainstorms come through the area,
but we also have some
and
smart weather.
I've never seen
and,
flooding in all of my life, and I've lived here my whole life in Broadhead.
Inclement weather.
And then certainly our road through Main Street here in CDI flooded.
Will give you
And
some
as I went
in-vehicle,
through it in a truck,
notifications
to my doorway,
as well
so I
as
can,
pedestrian
crossings
crossings
or wrong way.
all
of those things
regular
can be kind
car
of
or
a
sedan going
connected
through it
vehicle,
might
so
not be a great idea. So having these types of systems is paramount.
And here's
a
a little video on our dynamic curve warning system. You'll see some applications here in Colorado, I believe. So just as I alluded to, it's kind of hard for motorists sometimes to see how flooded a roadway actually is. And of course, if you're like me as well, you're like, well, I think I can make that.
Highway curves are considered to be one of the most dangerous highway segments a driver can encounter. These sections of road have 3 times as many crashes as other highway segments and account for 25% of all highway fatalities.
It doesn't happen often, but when
TAPCO's blinker chevron dynamic curve warning system has been proven to reduce horizontal curve crashes by as much as 58%.
Issues and reroutes.
The system increases driver awareness, reduces driving speeds, and keeps drivers on the road where it matters most.
So here are just some ideas.
Systems have many activation options, including 24/7, dusk till dawn operation for nighttime only activation,
I'm sure it's this way
weather smart activation during unfavorable weather conditions, and approaching vehicle activation.
As a transportation industry, kind of dig down underneath those to be able to get the clearance. So a lot of times those are the areas.
Speed detection is the most popular option to activate the system. If a vehicle is traveling too fast for the curve, the system activates, alerting the driver to the dangerous curve ahead.
I would say
the system wirelessly communicates the activation to the rest of the blinker chevrons. These warning systems guide the driver through the curve with simultaneous or sequential flash patterns. Systems can also use a combination of the two. These systems can also interface with connected vehicle infrastructure to provide onboard driver alerts. The system can be either single or double-sided and used in a variety of applications, like 2-lane rural highways,
So in each
high-speed
direction,
multi-lane
the motorist,
expressways,
know
roads
ahead
with
of time.
obstructed views,
Typically, the placement
or
of
any
that
other
is key,
dangerous
because you
curves.
certainly want to give motorists an ability
These
to be able
systems
to
can be
turn around,
AC powered
if
or
possible,
solar powered.
and give them far enough warning.
TAPCO offers a
advance notice
ruggedized version
depending on
of the
speed
Blinker
roadway,
Chevron dynamic curve
so
warning
that they're
system,
not,
built to
sliding
withstand
into
harsh
that area
environments
and making
like
sure they're
plowed
staying nice
snow,
and clear from it.
high winds,
And
or
again,
falling
just to
rocks.
know, all of these
The
products
extra
and
thick
GIN
aluminum
systems,
front plate
can be
prevents
used to
wiring
monitor,
exposure and
through
provides
our
extra
BlinkLink
durability.
software. You can
Enclosed
also
wiring
add
channels
cameras
and an aluminum
as well.
backplate
So,
prevent LED
if you
and
have
wiring
concerns
movement while
about
increasing
the system
rigidity.
activating and nothing's really happening, well, you can certainly be
The high-density
real-time,
substrate is
get some
cored
video
out around the wiring
confirmation,
channels
and,
to
if you
reduce
need to
weight
deploy
while maintaining
barricades
maximum
or other
stability.
folks, within the
The
agency
backplate
to
mounting
know
holes accommodate
out,
various
and,
bracket mounting
whatever the
options,
case may
including our
be,
Z-bar mounting
that's
brackets,
something
which
that
evenly
can happen
distribute
again
the
in real
sign's
time.
weight for added strength. Advanced curve warning alerts can be used to provide advanced warning of approaching changes in road
So as I
trajectory.
was talking about, here's a
Ideal
little
for
image at the
multi-lane
bottom here
expressways,
about,
a curve
Sea Isle
warning
City,
message
New
board
Jersey.
uses radar
And, this
detection
just
to
gives you an
determine
idea
vehicle
of the
speeds.
scope of this
If a
project.
vehicle is traveling too
You look at
fast for
all
the
those,
curve, the board displays
yellow
warning
signs at the
messages
bottom.
and
This is,
flashes
screen
overhead
capture
beacons to
from our
warn the
BlinkLink
driver.
software.
BlinkLink
So again,
software
this
can be
allows
added to the
the Sea
system
Isle
to
City
provide
engineer to
automated
be able
data
to pull
analysis
these
and
up and look
reporting,
at them each
which provides
individually
official with additional
and,
insight
see
on
what's going
system
on within that
activation,
system.
health
So,
monitoring, trend
again,
analysis,
using a
historic
blinker
reviews,
sign,
and an
using a
interactive
beacon,
map with all similar
those are all
devices.
options here as well.
TAPCO's
So,
Blinker Chevron
again, the
dynamic
alert
curve
poles
warning system
and then the
helps drivers
detection
navigate
pole
through some of the most
consist of,
dangerous sections of
making up
road they
that
will
type of
encounter.
system. And there's different types
Visit
of sensors as well that
tapconet.com
you'll
to learn
see
more.
that we use here for the detection pole, depending on where you're at geographically. So the photoelectric, the optical eye, we have a pressure sensor, and then the float sensor here are the options that we have. All of these, again, will depend on where you're at, whether it's freshwater or saltwater. So pressure sensor uses air to trigger the system. So it fills up that bell there that you see, increases that pressure to turn the system on. Our float sensor has a little bit more movable parts, and this is what ultimately will float. If you think of kind of your toilet tank, similar technology from that standpoint in terms of floating and triggering that system. So these are the two applications, or the two products you would use for a saltwater application. So for freshwater, we use our photoelectric optical sensor. This measures the reflection that bounces back to the eye, and once it touches the surface, it triggers that system. So it's a very sensitive sensor, and the controller is very small, and is within that sensor too that triggers our system. So again, not to beat a dead horse, if you will, but all of these products and all of these systems that we have can certainly be enhanced with our BlinkLink over-the-air system. We can use cameras and illuminators, so that we kind of developed as a pedestrian application from an illuminator standpoint. We can certainly light up, whether it's a wrong-way driver on the roadway, we can light up overhead detection, we can high water events, and then certainly our connected vehicle interface here that's been taken off in the last year or so can be certainly applied to any of these systems. And we'll talk about a little bit more too, so I won't let the cat out of the bag too much, but even with the connected vehicle interface, that's something that we can equip right now. Even if the infrastructure isn't quite there yet, you can still have that and can be activated and utilized down the road for when we do have that connected vehicle system, because it is coming. So I touched on the very beginning of our presentation, but it's just kind of a turnkey experience for us, and that was the most important thing for us. You know, we're a family-owned business, and we've been around since 1956, and we're a small business, but we wanted to make sure that, you know, we're kind of soup to nuts, you know, from that design phase, manufacturing the system to your specifications, helping with installation, and then also at the back end of things, supporting you guys as well, whether it's 24/7 service, phone calls. I know a lot of you folks utilize some of our Signal service as well. So we wanted to make sure we apply that to all of our products, not just the Signal side of things, but a lot of our IWS projects as well. So here's a video, but again, Hannah, we'll skip through this one. Again, if you guys want to see that, we can go to YouTube. If you'd like me to email that video to you, I can send that certainly as well individually. So we'll move on to our overheight warning system. Here's a simple setup. You can see that our beacons are the product of choice here. And certainly, again, kind of what the application we talked about, our high water system, same railroad track trestle here, and we've got to dig out underneath. So we want to make sure that we're alerting trucks primarily of that clearance height. I think we've got some statistics here coming up about overhead strikes and the cost that incurs. So here you go. I'll let you guys read through these here, but again, 10,000 bridge impacts nationally. That's quite a bit. So when you look at the average cost of $300,000 to $500,000, that can certainly add up. So we've taken a full-scale approach again to this, not only just alerting the truck and hopefully allowing them a chance to turn around and correct it before they get there, but also to be able to use cameras and see what's going on from that standpoint as well. Blinker signs or beacons. So 73% of states have installed this detection type style system here. So you can see that it replaces the standard existing static signage and makes it much more aware for drivers. So here's a basic system overlay here. You can see that the truck right now, it's got some detector poles and it's using our sensors. It has a dual beam, so it detects the direction of traffic as well. So if you have a two-lane road, bidirectional, trucks or vehicles going the other way aren't going to trigger this system for whatever the application may be. And you can see here, we have the two warnings setups and then also a route for motorists to be able to turn around and correct any behavior before they get to the point of no return. Again, all solar powered or AC powered depending on the application as well. So just talks again a little bit about the alert zone, the correction zone, and that confirmation that we use for BlinkLink. So all that BlinkLink can, from a Department of Transportation standpoint, can go back into an ops center, can be, pushed out to any emergency personnel. If there's an accident from any of that standpoint, that's all stuff that delivers images and would be able to be a very high valued feature for these types of systems. So here's a traditional setup. You have your cabinet, you have your blinker sign or beacon, you have your LED illuminator if you choose, and then you also have that cellular modem with our BlinkLink system as well, along with the detectors here at the top, and then of course lastly the solar panel here. And again, these all depend. We can do this type of system maybe with a 55-watt solar panel down in Arizona, whereas if we're doing something similar to this here in Wisconsin, this might take a couple of 85-watt panels. So it just depends on the features that folks are looking for. Again, that CVI can also be tied into these types of systems, adding cameras so you're having that real-time verification of an incident. We can easily also do some license plate LPR recognition if you want to do something like that to be able to make sure you would kind of track back to where the incidents occurred. All right, moving right along. I'll pause here, I guess. I know I've been kind of breezing through this stuff here, but are there any questions so far on any of the systems that we've covered to this point? Graphs on the right hand side of this slide here, that we've got a growing number of wrong way fatalities and events here in the last few years. So it's trending upward, not downward. It is a small percentage, but just by the very nature of wrong way driving, they're almost always fatal. So it's really been taking a closer look from a statistics standpoint with DOTs across the country. So here's a typical setup. We have an alert zone. Obviously, we want to allow for a motorist to correct if possible, and then a confirmation zone. And the confirmation zone is where we're sending images if the camera is utilized. This is where we're sending blink link notices to emergency personnel or a transportation operations center to alert people upstream that there is a wrong way driver in the vicinity. And again, just a little pole setup. So you can see the cabinet down there at the bottom. We have our wrong way blinker sign in this case. We can certainly use beacons as well. Then there is the LED illuminator. We have the high def camera, and then also that cellular modem if applicable. And at the very top, you can see our thermal detection as well. So that can be used in a pedestrian setting, but also as a vehicle setting. So here's just a good, better, and best application. Certainly, you know, having a blinker sign flash 24/7, or if you just simply want to operate at dusk to dawn when a majority of wrong way incidences occur, that's certainly a step up from anything static. But it's also not necessarily telling a motorist when there's an incident. It's just telling people all the time. So the better application would be use radar detection. So once the radar is detecting a motorist coming up the wrong way, it will trigger the system. Again, you can add all that blink link connectivity and be able to tie in cameras and photos. Best application would be a thermal detection. So this reduces the false calls, and you know, we've been in the wrong way industry here probably for the last 2 or 3 years, and we've really kind of taken a look at some of the best products out there to mitigate any false calls. And what we've got right now is a great product here with our thermal detection. So that would be the best, the Cadillac, if you will, of this types of systems here to cover all of that. So we'll talk about a little bit about communications here. So scenario one would just be simply using our cellular network that we have. There's no fiber necessary. We do a blink link subscription. We have access for service, and we also have, you know, pretty quick with a 5-second latency. So we have capabilities to go to API and ATMS as well. Second scenario would be utilizing an agency zone network. So we use high-speed fiber for that agency might have in place. It's a little bit more reliable network communication and secure because you're using their own protocols. TAPCO has access to the service, and again, API and ATMS capable. Scenario 3 would be direct to an ATMS. So this utilizes the advanced communication controller that we've developed and goes through the high-speed fiber network again, and there's no recurring blink link cost. So that's kind of what you eliminate. And also you can eliminate or limit access for our folks as well from service if security is a concern. So we've done a lot of talking about blink link here through all of our projects and products and systems. So just to give you a little bit more focus on what blink link is and does, here are some images right here. So if you look at the second image here at the top right, you can see that the wrong way is lit up on the screen with the red and the green is actually the motor heading in the right direction. So there's also a audible you can add to the system as well. Downtown Milwaukee, once there's a wrong way driver, they actually have an audible alert within the operations center that will come online as well. The bottom left, you can see what the thermal detection looks like. Picking up the videos, you would have seen some of this functionality as well from my Terrace's standpoint. So they use a lot of thermal detection in theirs as well. So we also do these high color, high res images, event video. So we log this and keep this on file as well. But BlinkLink also allows you to look at the health and diagnostics for the system as well. So it's a maintenance resource. You guys can look at it and kind of drill down and see, you what time of day, how many issues we're having, what's going on. In a wrong way setting, you can see where folks are getting off, where they're getting on. So there's a lot more data behind using a system like BlinkLink. So here's just an example of a wrong way event. So you're detecting them there on the bottom left. And as you alert to the operations center, you get an audible pop-up if you choose. Text and emails are available, and a series of photos too for verification. So what do we do with the information as we get to that point? Well, we can do a few different things. We can warn motorists on that leg in that area of the interstate or the highway. You can notify emergency personnel, and then hopefully, ultimately, you can have the motorist correct, and you can also see that via real-time video. So here's just some other additional enhancements that you guys can add to a wrong way system. So you can communicate directly with the ATMS and direct alerting and management as well. So it enhances your diagnostic and field service, reduce costs of a lot of your maintenance, so folks aren't always going out there to check on these things and being reactive. You can be proactive and take a look at these and set maintenance schedules, whether it's every 2 weeks, once a month, every 6 months, whatever the case may be. So that's a really neat feature here that you guys have the ability to do. Just dovetailing off of that and continuing, it's capable of being configured from the web page as well. So again, you don't need to be hands-on in the field with this type of stuff. We can keep work zone crews off the roadway, which a lot of times is a huge safety feature as well. So again, our connected vehicle interface, we can do ramp overviews with our cameras to monitor and detect, again, LPR. We've also done some in-road warning lights in a few applications, and also, again, those dynamic message boards from Adaptive are other components that we've used on projects to be able to enhance those types of systems. Skip through this video. And moving along to our intersection conflict warning system. So this is really important in our rural applications. So we've got a few slides here to talk about how we set these up. And it's proven to reduce some TTI studies, about 30% crash reduction here at two-way stops. So pretty impactful. It's ideal for those sharp turns and curves, blind driveways, and where there's new intersections where there hasn't been signs before, where you're having these cross streets. So it really reduces a lot of those crash impact points. So the system is detecting that major road traffic and flashes over to the minor side, making sure that those guys have an idea that there's a vehicle coming and approaching. The minor road detection occurs at the stop line and ahead of the stop line as well. So if a vehicle is detected at either point, the major road intersection ahead, blinker sign flashes to those folks as well. So everyone's getting an alert and a warning that there's vehicle present, makes folks and the motorists a little bit more aware of what's going on around them. We also have some weather systems. This is our icy road system. So you get real-time warning. The sensors actually have to bring in humidity and dew point and make sure all of those temperatures are on the same level, in the sense that it's not going to activate just off of one of those, so that all three of those need to be present for a system to activate. Again, these can be solar powered or AC powered. So really unique feature from that standpoint, reducing liability, and also, again, letting motorists know and make sure they're driving the right speed for the right conditions out there, especially here in our northern climates in Wisconsin. So traditionally, you guys have probably seen these firehouse systems, with beacons, and we certainly can do that as well. But we've also done a lot more here recently with our blinker signs. So also, again, real-time alerting of these departing and returning vehicles. We can do these via key fobs. We can do these via strobe switch activation. There's also confirmation lights for optionals or in-house push buttons to trigger the system as well before they head out on a call. I'll brush through this one, but this is just, again, another little BlinkLink enhancement here that we can use for our firehouse systems as well. And here's a cool slide, because I like to see this. It really brings it home when you look at what BlinkLink does for you. So this agency here, I can't see who it is exactly, but this agency here has a handful of signs in their arsenal. So it's one way to easily catalog and inventory your systems. If you can drill down into each one of these and hover over each one of these signs, you can actually see and find out more information here in the system status, notifications. It also has a little geofencing feature as well. So that controller is tied into that specific location. If that were to ever go missing, you'd be able to tell where that system has gone offline as well. And so what's really neat too about BlinkLink is you're able to kind of configure some of the flash durations too. So let's say, for instance, on a crosswalk system, you have it set for 30 seconds, which is our default factory default. And you say, you know what, that's just not cutting it. We still need a little bit more time. You can go in and change that time, and it's instantaneous once you upload it to the controller. So it's a really neat feature. Saves you time and energy and resources from having to go out into the field, wherever that location might be. The email and SMS alerts, so text messages, you have different levels of security on this as well. So you might, send emails to folks that are on maintenance duty that day or that night, and then also send it to somebody else, like on a Tuesday. So if you know your schedule for your crew a week in advance or whatever the case may be, you can set that type of stuff up as well. So here's our CVI. This is one of our brand new products that we're super excited about. And again, this can be AC or solar powered. You'll see that theme in anything that we do. We want to make sure that we're covering all applications. So AC powered or solar powered. This communicates with the smart city features that are coming out in a lot of different areas here in Wisconsin, specifically in the Madison and the Racine area. They've taken a look at these and be able to transmit that data. So if you're up on it, there's two different competing data points right now, and it's dedicated short range or the 5G network. And so our system will work with either one of them at this point. We didn't want to, I guess, get behind one technology and have it not be the one moving forward. So we wanted to make sure that we were agile and nimble enough to be able to utilize either one of those. And again, you can integrate this with ATMS systems and give traffic managers and engineers that insight and information that they love seeing. So the way it would work, the crosswalk system gets activated at the crosswalk, just like in a normal traditional setting. The radio then communicates wirelessly to that roadside unit. That roadside unit then will communicate to the vehicle. It can have an audible from a pedestrian in crosswalk 500 feet ahead, or it can just be a visual in your mirror or whatever the case may be. So as you can see, again, through all of our systems, this roadside unit and our connected vehicle interface, it's all applicable. So this is all stuff, going to the new age and the new world of transportation, that certainly will be of value here in short order. So here's just a little kind of snippet of that rear view mirror alert. If any of you have been in a connected vehicle or some degree of connected vehicle, you'll be able to see that kind of stuff either pop up in your dash on screen or pop up in your rear view mirror, whatever the case may be. Here's just a little dashboard cutout. So we've gone through most of our systems, and I mentioned at the top of the presentation as well, but our ETO, which is our engineered to order, that's one of the things that we take a lot of pride in. Like I mentioned, from our smart work zone stuff, our weather information systems, way stations, we've done a lot of work with the DOT on, bike paths and trail crossings. All of those things are unique. Every location is unique and has its own challenges. So we really like to be able to look at a system and kind of design all the way around it. And again, soup to nuts from that design phase to the manufacturing and service and warranty on the product as well. So Joe mentioned it in his presentation as well, but we're not only a manufacturer of our products from the solar side of things, but we're also a distributor of a lot of different products as well, from your consumables to U-channels and delineators. You can see the Verdegro blade there in the corner. We do message boards, speed humps, and obviously we're a full-fledged sign manufacturer as well. We do a lot of custom wayfinding work, just to give you an idea of a lot of the different things that we can do. So you've seen a lot of the products, or a handful of the products today, but just know that that's only the tip of the iceberg. So there's a lot more to us. I know a lot of times I'll talk to folks and, well, yeah, TAPCO's the sign people, but the easiest way I can describe it is, we make everything to do with the roadway except for the asphalt and the concrete. If you folks have been around on the signal side of things, we've done PM contracts for a long time here, working with WSDOT and local agencies and municipalities as well. But what we've really tried to expand on in the last, I don't know, probably about a year or so, is moving those preventive contracts not only just to the signal side of the business, but also in our IWS contracts. So all of these products that we've covered today, we want to start being able to, do PMs on that type of stuff as well. We understand and listen to you folks that, those are investments on your side of things too. And, doing more with less these days, and the resources sometimes can be challenging. We want to be able to step in and provide that offering to you folks as well. So this just kind of gives you a list of some of those line items that we typically will look at. So, replacement parts and knockdowns, consulting on some of the project side of things, installing new products, getting you new information. And then we do those annual and semi-annual maintenance checks and provide, reports to you guys too, so that you can implement into your software. If there's ever an issue, you guys can show the information that we've provided to you to make sure that you guys are covered. One of the last few slides I have for you, hopefully all of you are aware of Omnia Partners. It was formerly U.S. Communities, but this is a contract specifically for the public sector. There's our contract number over there, but it's one of the largest cooperative vehicles that you guys have at your access. So it's a system that not only has traffic and transportation, that's obviously what our contract covers, but there's a slew of other manufacturers in there as well that cover furniture, lighting, roofing, all sorts of products. So I encourage you to take a look at Omnia Contract, Omnia Partners, again, formerly U.S. Communities, and take a look at that kind of stuff. It allows you to leverage the purchasing power throughout a country. And we have thousands and thousands and thousands of products on there under our contract as well. So if you want to hear more information about that, I have some sheets handouts that I can pass along to you folks as well. So our lead agency actually is in Barron County. So how Omnia works is we actually replied to a solicitation on traffic and transportation products along with several other companies. And the award was done and vetted through Barron County on low bid. So it takes into states, and states agencies are available to it, cities, counties, and munis, and then also nonprofits and charitable organizations as well. So this has already been pre-solicited or pre-let, if you will. So this is a contract that has been already vetted. So that's at your fingertips for you guys to utilize as well. So if you're not familiar with it, the chances are that your folks in purchasing, your purchasing director, is aware of the contract too. So it's something that you guys, again, can utilize. And again, just to kind of hammer home, the TAPCO brand and what we offer, we have hundreds of years of experience together from an engineering standpoint. We have a full-fledged TSG group is what we call it, technical sales group. So we, as sales reps, will talk to our sales folks, our technical sales group, make sure that the system we're providing and the system that we're talking to you about as a customer meets all your needs and will work based on geography, based on power, applications, and whatever the case may be. So that's something that we really take a lot of pride in as well. We understand that procurement process. We also hold a few different GSA service contracts as well from the federal side of things. So we've had a lot of experience with those government contracts and be able to navigate that with you folks as well and help through that process. Use this as a consultant. One of my biggest things, if you haven't heard me say it, you probably will at some point, but I always like to take myself as a resource and an extension of you and your staff and crew to get you what you need. You know, again, use me as the resource to be able to be an extension for you folks. And, you know, we love that part of the business. And again, that preventative maintenance. So again, soup to nuts. We want to do the design phase of manufacture and be able to hold you through the process and create customers for life here with our preventative maintenance after the fact as well. All right, so there's a lot of information there. I kind of went quick through some of that stuff. I hope, again, you picked up a few things here or there. I'd love to hear any questions that you guys might have. If you can't think of any right now and they come to you after we're offline here, certainly get me shoot me a message via email. I'll be more than happy to provide all that information. So I'll sit tight. If anybody we love your feedback, good, bad, or indifferent. We certainly want to continue to make these better and, you know, focus on the things that are important to you guys here in the transportation world as we're in it here with you as well. With that, I'll sign off. If there's anything else, please let us know. Thanks, guys.